Okay, and we are live, ladies and gentlemen. How are we all doing, folks? We'll get started here in just 5 minutes. Okay, let me just start the countdown, go live on Instagram, and try to get a few more people into here. But some sad news, guys. I'll get to in a little bit. This may be one of our last live streams for a while on YouTube, but I'll tell you why. It's not because I'm like quitting or anything. It's actually because we have something very epic that's planned very soon. But I'll let you guys know about that. Lots to talk about on the show tonight. We'll get started here in just 5 minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Someday I would buy valleys with good origins, sails to distant shores, stand up high in the brow, noble bark I steer, steady course for the haven, too many foemen.
Tens of thousands on my right, thousands by my side. War between good and evil, watching our fists collide. Battle for our freedom now, to the streets we ride. Flags waving all around, pages full of pride. This is where we make a stand, no more give or take. March around the Capitol, storm the city gates. Putting pressure on their necks until the truth breaks. All walls of corruption, take out all the snakes. Star Spangled Banner, got it playing loud and proud. People from all walks of life filling up the crowd. Defend the Constitution.
I just feel sunset too.
All citizens, white, red, brown, or black. Return it to a form of glory, fix the bloody crack on the crown. Fetch it down, it's going down.
Alright, folks, this is exciting. I was literally just walking around Capitol Hill today, and I managed to bump into Nancy Pelosi. Speaker Pelosi, so you promised $2,000 stimulus checks if Democrats won the Georgia Senate runoff. So why have you not backtracked on that promise? Can we get an answer, Mrs. Pelosi? Nope, I guess not. It looks like Pelosi is dodging questions from the press, but let's keep circling around here. So over here, guys, it looks like I've stumbled into a meeting of top congressional Democrats. I believe they're discussing this year's budget.
Freedom, cause the fallen troops pay for this. I love this country, doesn't matter how much hate I get. I take my colors in the battle, ain't no wavering, cause this is for my warriors who marching to the cadences. This is for the sisters working hard on the ship. This is for the brothers getting young.
I didn't vote for more foreign wars because you did vote for more foreign wars, and you sort of knew that you were voting for more foreign wars. So why did you vote for him? It's going to be a giant I told you so for me and a lot of other conservatives.
Left troops out in the cold, turned their backs on you. I was told to just protect them, then you'd fold. But on day one, that's pretty bold. You go and make us wear a mask. You say it's not too much to ask, but then you don't wear a mask. Your own rules too much a task. I'm saying Biden's hiding, Biden's frightened, Biden keeping us divided. Biden's sickness heightens and Kamala's grip on power tightens. This ain't unity, this ain't for you and me. This is hurt and break things with total impunity. You want a clean slate from the past, but ain't nothing changed with you. You still America last. And you showed it pretty fast, so don't no one listen. You a pretty big ass, and your VP ain't cool, cause she has a little sass. The news live in a fantasy while you giving amnesty, but you ain't got a fan in me, cause I care for our people. See, yes, I said our people, not illegals at Home Depot, cause some children pretty feeble, so why are we the world's weasel? Yeah, it's about power, elites in their ivory towers. American voters are too sour, drawn them out by the hour with illegals for the power. You don't care, you a coward, yeah, illegals for the power, illegals for the coward, yeah. Hella sedentary, incompetent per secretary. Wish you could be like Barry, but at least their legs are hairy. That don't make no sense, nah, you don't make no sense. Liberal cities full of tents, migrants wanna hop the fence, yeah. People losing jobs, people chased by all the mobs, people in garages for the ops, people falling in the slobs, yeah. This is Joe's America, this is what he plans for ya. Now we back in Paris, now we gon' perish, yeah.
Hey, I can't say I didn't tell you. I can't say I didn't warn you, because I did. Look. All right, and we are live, ladies and gentlemen. I still need to figure out a good way to actually promote these YouTube lives. Okay, I had it like mastered during election season, and then everyone stopped caring about politics, and everyone's political channels' YouTube views basically died. But we'll figure out. Actually, it won't really matter because, folks, again, this might be one of my last YouTube live streams. Okay, not like forever, but like for a while. We might stop doing this weekly because big news, guys, and I don't know how much I'm able to share, so I'll keep it minimally. But I am probably going to be getting my own TV show soon on Roku. Okay, so we'll probably keep the podcast and then take the live over there, and that'll basically be the live show format. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be very exciting. But for right now, guys, let's enjoy the last basically formal live stream that we're going to be doing for a while. Thomas Lampy says, "What do you think about John Doyle's beard? Should he keep it?" I don't know. Personally, I think some white guys do look good with beards. But in terms of Doyle, I don't know. I'm so used to seeing his baby face that it's like, I don't know. It's a little bit weird seeing him with a beard. I don't know if I'm really a fan of that. But anyways, guys, how are we all doing? Welcome to Vince Dao Live, ladies and gentlemen. And we've got lots to talk about tonight. But first, I wanted to start off with this because it is very important, folks. Very important. We all know that the conservative movement faces a lot in America. We're up against a lot. No longer is it that we are up against, just the party in government, if Democrats hold the government, which they do. No, we've known for a few years that we're up against academia and we're up against the news media. And so we're up against people that are literally able to control the flow of information, which is scary in itself, right? But beyond that, we're now up against corporate America. And I think this is, I've been saying this for a few weeks now, actually. I actually said this in a speech a few weeks ago, and I don't think people really paid attention. But I was telling you, I was calling it because the corporations in America are no longer on the side of the Republican Party, okay? There's a few reasons why this is. There's a number of reasons why this is. Because we all know that Republicans basically used to be the party of Wall Street, used to be the party of the big corporations, but it's really shifted. It's really shifting. I think there's not really one single explanation as to why it is, other than we are seeing a political realignment happening right now in America, where Republicans are sort of now taking the mantle of being the party of the working class, which started under Trump. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying every Republican or even most of the Republicans in Washington are really like working class populist guys, but it is true that you're seeing this realignment sort of happening right now. And the question kind of is why? Well, number one, the whole problem that corporate America, I guess, has had for a long time with Democrats, in particular, is because it was that they were kind of scared that Democrats were going to get in office and overregulate them and raise their taxes. This is the big corporations specifically. But they've kind of now figured out, that that's not the case. Because what happens, Joe Biden right now talking about raising the corporate tax rate. What is actually going to happen as a result of that, okay? And initially, I just sort of took it at face value, and then a few people made some really good points to me, and I was like, actually, you're right. This is true. It doesn't mean they're going to raise the corporate tax rate because these corporations basically pay zero in taxes anyway, and when Joe Biden decides or he manages to get the votes, hypothetically, let's say, Joe Manchin is saying he's not going to vote for it, but if Joe Biden were to hypothetically get the votes to be able to raise corporate taxes, what would actually happen? What would actually happen is that you have companies like Amazon and stuff that pay zero in taxes anyway. They're going to raise the corporate tax rate, but they're not going to get rid of the loopholes, okay? So the people who are not able to get out of the loopholes, so we're talking like small businesses, medium to small size corporations, they're going to get killed by any tax increase under Biden. But companies like Amazon, okay, the big companies, the big businesses, they're virtually going to see zero increase in the tax rate, okay? So when the taxes go up on the small businesses, it's actually just going to crush the small businesses and then leave these big businesses like Amazon and United Airlines and all the big woke corporations basically completely unscathed. Okay, they're going to be completely unscathed. And so I think they've kind of figured this out. You realize now that Democrats are basically in many ways becoming the party of corporate America. And you especially see this with, the new Georgia voting laws. So many companies, so many big corporations came out basically towing the Democratic Party line, saying this is racist, this is voter suppression. Okay, Major League Baseball moved its pro day out of Georgia, ironically to Colorado, which is a state that actually has less days of early voting than Georgia and also requires voter ID. Why not move it to California? Oh, right. That's right. That's right. You can't move it to California because they're not allowing anyone into the stadium. Okay. But no, seriously. And we're basically at this point now where I really hope that Republicans wake up to this. Like seriously wake up to this, not just performatively, because for years it has been Republicans, really, I think kind of misguidedly, but they have been doing it. For years, it has been Republicans who have basically defended the corporations, right? They've been defending the corporations, trying to deregulate, trying to let the corporations basically have the best economic situation possible. And how have the corporations responded to it? By spitting in our face and calling us racist, okay? So just something to think about. But the point in basically saying this is that we're up against a lot. Okay, a lot as a Republican Party and as conservatives in general in this country right now. And what we need is strong leadership, okay? We need strong Republicans calling the shots in this country right now. And are we actually getting that, okay? In some cases, yes. We have a few fighters out there, and I really appreciate those fighters, and I'm willing to defend and support those fighters. But largely, to a large extent, you have a lot of Republicans who are simply just utterly trash, nonsensical, and weak, okay? And just purely weak. And one such, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but actually, let's talk about this first. You see, you saw the other week, Ron DeSantis signed an executive order that banned vaccine passports. And let me give you an example of this, okay? So Ron DeSantis, who is someone I do consider to be a fighter and someone like I'm not attacking Ron DeSantis, so don't click off the live and get mad. Ron DeSantis signs an executive order banning the use of vaccine passports in the state of Florida, okay? But very important, Ron DeSantis' executive order also banned private businesses from using vaccine passports, okay? And that's very important because we know how this is really going to happen, okay? The whole vaccine passports. It's not going to be so much that the government's going to be mandating it everywhere. It's just going to be that all of the private businesses, especially the corporations who, let's remember, folks, are not on our side, okay? They're not exactly on the side of conservatives here to show up to your job. You're going to have to show a vaccine passport. So in other words, in order to go to work at your job, you're going to have to get vaccinated. In order to go to the store, vaccine passport. Travel, go to a concert, go to a football game, whatever it is. That's where they're going to get you. And we've long known that. So Ron DeSantis did a very smart thing preemptively. He says, no, not only is the government not going to be allowed to enforce it, private businesses are not allowed to check you for a vaccine passport either. And that's very good. That's very important, right? Because that's how it's really going to play out. Now, meanwhile, you have this executive order in Texas by Greg Abbott, okay? And Greg Abbott signs it like right after Ron DeSantis, so everyone is assuming, oh, he must be copying what Ron DeSantis is doing. And he basically words it. He words the way he frames, his PR, his public presentation of the executive order as being the same as DeSantis. We're banning vaccine passports. But when you read carefully, actually, the language of his executive order, all it bans is government mandated vaccine passports. You actually read through the language of his executive order. It does not prevent private businesses from employing vaccine passports themselves. And so, again, my question here is what damn good does that do? Because we all knew how it was going to happen. It wasn't so much going to be that the government from the top down was going to be mandating the vaccine passports. We knew it was more going to be that all the businesses fall in line, just as all the corporations kind of are right now with masks and social distancing and all that stuff, right? All the capacity restrictions and everything. We knew it was going to kind of fall in line to where it's the private businesses that are getting it, okay? And instead of actually taking the same action as DeSantis, Greg Abbott, who I am going to say is a weak governor and a lot of things he is doing that are good. And don't get me wrong, he's not the worst Republican in America. But the problem with Abbott, again, not the worst governor out there, but the problem is that the other Republican states follow what Texas does, okay? And when you have someone in office in Texas who is kind of just meh, kind of just mediocre, and frankly, it shows a lot of weakness at times and is taking very half-assed, poorly thought-out decisions, you're going to result and I know this is true because I'm already seeing it happening. Okay, this is not me speculating. Most of the other Republican states, again, follow what Texas does because they're still kind of in the old school mentality. Back then, that is how it used to be. Texas kind of is the ringleader of the Republican states. And so you saw this a few weeks ago, a few months, or about a month ago now, right? How long ago was it? But back when Texas lifted all of their lockdowns and lifted their mask mandate, right? Immediately, all of the other Republican states followed them, right? I think it was like Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Arizona. All the states followed in getting rid of their mask mandate and in lifting their lockdowns too. Again, they followed Texas, which is the problem because Florida lifted their COVID restrictions like almost a year ago, like back July or August of last year, right? Or maybe it was in September, but long time ago. 0 Republican states that I'm aware of actually followed them and kind of saw Ron DeSantis as the ringleader. Instead, they see Greg Abbott in Texas as the ringleader. Now, this is happening once again because the Tennessee governor simultaneously says, we're going to be banning vaccine passports. But what he actually said was, we're going to be banning government-mandated vaccine passports, which literally just means that private businesses, corporations, the same corporations, by the way, that are calling us racist for wanting voter ID and all that stuff. Yeah, those corporations are just going to make it a freaking living hell to actually be able to live without a vaccine passport. Because what point is it in saying that, again, that the state government says, well, you don't have to show a vaccine passport if your grocery store and your workplace and everywhere else that you go says that you do? It is quite pointless. There really is no point. There's really no huge benefit from it. You know what I'm saying? But again, you are going to see Tennessee is already starting. I'm sure the dominoes are all going to fall into effect. All the states are going to copy Abbott's order and not DeSantis's order. Because again, DeSantis is not the ringleader, which he should be, by the way. Okay, which he should be. DeSantis is basically he is the most popular Republican politician among Republican voters right now. There are some polls out there. The methodology is a little bit flawed, but you have like betting odds, some Twitter polls on conservative pages and stuff like that. You have some polls out there saying that, of Republican voters saying that they actually would prefer Ron DeSantis to run for president in 2024 over Donald Trump, which is not necessarily a position that I take. I think they're both great candidates, but it's just kind of I'm not really going to favor one or the other right now. I think they're both very solid candidates that I would both support, right? That's kind of my stance. But the point is, Ron DeSantis and the state of Florida should be the people who are leading this National Republican Party. And instead of them being the ones that are in charge, which they have the popularity of the voters right now, instead you have Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott, who a lot of the crap he does is largely performative. And the problem is so many of us basically are buying his crap, okay? We all celebrated him as he lifted his mask mandate and lifted his lockdowns, but it's like, dude, you did it in 2021. You should have been doing this a long freaking time ago. You know what I mean? And the same thing is true with this vaccine passport thing. Everyone's like, oh my God, I love my Governor Abbott. No, you should not. No, you should not, because he's not doing what Ron DeSantis is doing. He's doing basically the opposite of what Ron DeSantis is doing. So again, we have a weak Republican Party in this country, okay? Which is not good. Not good, folks. Okay, not good. Very sad. Not based at all. But I think it's time really to start kind of exposing these people, okay? Unmasking who these people really are. And by the way, I'm not out here saying that I think Greg Abbott is like the worst governor. Once again, I'll say that. But I am here to say that he's really just mediocre at best. And he really should not be the ringleader of the other Republican states in our country right now. But anyways, folks, enough about Abbott right now. Let's actually focus in, because this is another thing, another just show of utter weakness that you're basically seeing from these statewide Republican governors. Kristi Noem had her feel pretty bad, refusing to sign bills banning transgenders in women's sports. Okay, but check this out. It's on Tucker Carlson last night. The governor of Arkansas, I believe his name is Asa. His name's Asa. No wonder. Asa Hutchinson, I believe his name is. explaining why he's refusing to sign a bill regarding transgender reassignment surgeries, which basically is chemical castration for minors. Okay, we're talking about youth transgender reassignment surgeries right now. And just check this out, okay? I want you guys to watch this. This is purely, and we'll react to it, purely a very strong example of weak Republicans in our party that we either need to get them in shape, and if they can't get in shape, they need to be voted out of office and primary with someone who will fight. So,
the legislature in Arkansas recently passed a bill that would ban doctors from prescribing so-called puberty blockers, heavy-duty hormones, to children who believe they're transgender. The law also bans surgeons from physical castration of children. But the governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson, vetoed that bill on Monday. Legislatures in Arkansas just voted to override that veto, which brings us.
Okay, someone said the audio got bad. Okay, hold on. Let me, I'll plug in my mic. My mic's not plugged in, so maybe that's why. Okay, I'll keep playing the video.
Where we are right now. Asa Hutchinson is the governor of Arkansas, and he joins us to talk about this story. Governor, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it in the middle of all this. Now, I think of you as a conservative. Here you've come out publicly as pro-choice on the question of chemical castration of children. What changed?
Well, first of all, your teaser as you led into this program did not accurately represent the bill. If this had been a bill that simply prohibited chemical castration, I would have signed the bill. But Tucker, as you know, this bill was overbroad, it was extreme, and went far beyond what you just said. And I made it clear that if this was about prohibiting procedures, sex reassignment surgery, absolutely, I would have signed that bill. But this, again, is the first law in the nation that invokes the state between medical decisions, parents who consent to that, and the decision of the patient. And so this goes way too far. And in fact, it doesn't even have a grandfather clause that those young people that are under hormonal treatments,
okay, but if I could just
from
correct you for a second. Well, this is chemical castration, of course. If you stop puberty and suppress the sex hormones, you're chemically castrating someone. So our description was correct. But let me just ask you, I mean, there are all kinds of, we're talking about minors, children here, and there are all kinds of things in Arkansas kids in every state are not allowed to do. Get married, drink a beer, get a tattoo. Why do you think it's important for conservatives to make certain that children can block their puberty, be chemically castrated? Why is that a conservative value, if you would tell us?
Well, first of all, you have parents involved in very difficult decisions. You have physicians that are involved in these decisions. And I go back to William Buckley. I go back to Ronald Reagan, the principles of...
Okay, that's why the audio got bad. When I put in my AirPods, it started by using my AirPods as the mic, and that's probably why it got screwed up. Okay, anyways, we have my regular microphone now anyway, so it's fine. We're cool. But I want to let's rewind a little bit. Let's take a look at what this guy says.
If I could just correct you for a second. Let me just ask you, I mean, there are all kinds of, we're talking about minors, children here, and there are all kinds of things in Arkansas kids in every state are not allowed to do. Get married.
So this goes way too far. And in fact, it doesn't even have a grandfather clause. Absolutely. Hold on. I would have signed that bill. But this, again, is the first law in the nation that invokes the state between medical decisions, parents who consent to that, and the decision of the patient. And so this goes way too far.
Okay, you hear that, guys? Oh, no, guys. He doesn't want to invoke the state, which means the government. He doesn't want to invoke the government in making sure that little kids who are literally not even old enough to consent legally to anything why would the government ever want to stop and make sure that they're not able to chemically castrate themselves with serious mental, and the data on this is pretty clear, causing a lot of serious mental trauma, a lot of physical trauma, and essentially causing chemical castration. Okay. But guys, big government sucks. Okay, we could never use the government. Okay, why would we ever dare of such a thing? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, weak Republicans and really still stuck in this whole stupid small government ideology that the government never has any place ever in regulating, basically what you want to say, regulating morality. What are you talking about? I mean, first of all, we've gone over this before, but first of all, you know, every law out there is based on some idea of morality, okay? The most basic laws protecting you from murder, theft, property rights, etc., based on a moral view, a view of morality. So this idea that you can't legislate morality, especially with some degree, such as in just regulating what kids who are not even able to legally consent to things can do, this idea that that's somehow not allowed, absolutely asinine, okay? The bottom line is this guy's just scared, okay? Republicans are just very scared of ever having the government actually do stuff. Even when, in this case, the government doing stuff would actually be a really good thing because you're protecting kids from permanent, traumatic, one could even argue child abuse at an age where they can't even consent to it, okay? This really should be a no-brainer. You don't have to be a serious social conservative to even believe this. I know a lot of liberals, basically everyone over the age of 35 in this country especially, who basically unanimously believe, you have even people who like support the idea of transgenderism, still people who believe that you shouldn't be able to transition before the age of 18 because you can't even legally consent to these permanent. And people who say that it's not permanent are just lying to you. Of course, it has some permanent effects. Permanent, you know, physical and mental effects on you at an age where you can't even consent. It's ridiculous. But let's keep going. Let's see what this clown of a human being has to say right here.
I go back to Ronald Reagan, the principles of our party, which believes in a limited role of government. Are we as a party abandoning?
A limited role of government. Okay, sir. Limited role of government. Oh, how far does that limited role of government go? So are you going to make the small government case for why we should legalize abortion? Are you going to make, or you know, not it is illegal, unfortunately. I'm sorry, not criminalize abortion? Are you going to make the? By the way, I wonder where this guy stands on the issue of weed legalization. I mean, I don't know. I could be completely wrong. But he kind of comes off as an anti-weed kind of Republican, which is not necessarily, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but what are you talking about? Limited government. We're talking about the issue of children being chemically castrated. I believe the government has plenty of place to regulate what the hell goes on there. Republicans seriously need to get out of this stupid limited government mentality that really doesn't even make consistent or logical sense, okay? Because I guarantee you this guy is probably against weed. I don't know. If you live in Arkansas, please, you can tell me wrong. Maybe he's a total libertarian, but it seems to me like he's really giving a cop-out, stupid answer for this.
A limited role of government and saying we're going to invoke the government decision-making over and above physicians, over and above healthcare, over and above parents. And
yes, unironically, yes, okay? And again, it's not a healthcare decision, okay? Healthcare is like, you're actually like, oh, my knee is hurting. I need to get medication for it. Oh, I have a heart problem. Please do surgery on it, okay? Medical problems when you talk about medical problems, it's things that are actually like physically affecting you or physically threatening you or just trying to ensure your own physical well-being. Please stop referring to transgender issues as medical issues. No, they're not, okay? No, they're not. Unless you want to talk about mental health, which is a different discussion. But seriously, no, they're not.
Saying you can't do that.
So you believe it's healthcare.
You cannot engage in that.
How deeply?
There you go. Tucker seriously believes the same thing as me.
Have you studied this topic? With respect, it doesn't sound like you've studied it very deeply. I mean, this is an emerging field. There's not a lot of research, but the research that exists suggests that depression and the urge to self-harm and suicide is a side effect of taking these hormones. A study in the UK showed the overwhelming majority of children on puberty-blocking
folks,
hormones had the urge to hurt themselves. Why is
many
that
such cases
responsible medicine to do that to children? Why would you support something like that?
Well, I actually reviewed some of that study. I reviewed the high court decision there, and I think they are different than what you're talking about here. Sure, there's a lot of unknowns here. I studied this bill in contrast to what you just said. I spent a lot of time reviewing cases, meeting with people, listening to the experts, as well as to faith leaders as well. And I'm a person of faith, but at the same time, I'm a person of limited role of government. I sign pro-life bills. I sign many bills that would be looked at as very conservative, but this is one that crosses the line. There's no need for it.
Hold on.
And,
I'm sorry, but hold on. You say there's no need for it, but you've said that you've seen research that shows the mental health of children who receive puberty-blocking drugs improves. What is that research exactly?
Yeah, it doesn't exist. Okay. I mean, and I'm not. It's not to shame them or attack them. You know, I think it's a serious mental problem. You know, and I want to see them helped. I want to see them basically fixed and cured of that. You know, and I'm not really one that I think we should just go around like insulting them, or I seriously think that there's something they struggle with, but we should be helping them with this, not encouraging them with it, not basically giving them. And people always this whole idea that puberty blockers don't have permanent effects. That's nonsense. I mean that's nonsense. You know, you can't just halt your development for several years on end. And then it just restarts again? It doesn't work like that. Okay, it doesn't work like that. Even if you ultimately do come out in some form as like, if you use puberty blockers for a while and then you stop using them, even if in some ways you kind of come out medically okay in the end, the idea that it doesn't have permanent effects on your brain and your body, that's nonsense. That's utter nonsense. But
the research that I've seen shows that these troubled youth, these ones that have gender dysphoria, that they also have depression, they have suicidal tendencies. It's a higher suicide rate than others. And they go to their parents, the parents go to doctors, and they try to deal with this very difficult issue. I don't think we should deny them health care.
Hold on. I'm sorry. You're the governor. You just vetoed this bill. You said you're familiar with the studies. No one disputes that children who are asking for puberty-blocking drugs or been recommended to their parents or doctors may be depressed. That seems very likely. I think the studies show it. Cite one specific study that shows puberty-blocking drugs improves the condition. Does it make children less depressed? Does it make them less likely to harm themselves, to commit suicide? Just name one study that shows that, please.
Well, I would refer you to the American Academy of Pediatrics. I would refer you to the the physicians that came out in opposition to this bill because they understood the risk to these young people. And if you prohibit the medical care that this bill prohibits, then you're going to endanger these young people even further.
This guy's all over the place. Okay. First of all, don't invoke Ronald Reagan as if Ronald Reagan would somehow support chemically castrating kids. I mean, I'm not like the biggest Ronald Reagan fan. I actually think he's kind of like overrated as a conservative president in a lot of ways. But I don't think he would really support allowing, because I don't know, transgenderism wasn't so much of a thing back then, right? But I really don't think he'd actually support allowing the government not stopping little kids early as like 9-10 years old in a lot of cases from being put on puberty blockers, from being chemically castrated, from basically being encouraged to pursue what we know to be is either a mental disorder or a symptom of mental disorder that actually causes, serious issues with depression and health effects. Okay. What are we talking about here? I don't think Ronald Reagan would exactly be saying that this is healthcare. And don't get me wrong, I'm not the biggest like Ronald Reagan guy, but I still don't think that's even something that he would believe. So what is he talking about, man?
So I would cite
how
all
do we
those
know that?
medical
Hold on.
experts.
This field barely existed 10 years ago.
And this is true.
Cases of gender dysphoria, so-called, have increased by thousands of % in the last decade. So actually, we can't know the answers to these questions. The research that we have suggests the opposite of what you're claiming. You clearly aren't familiar with the research. And so my question is, have you spoken to any of the biggest employers, the big companies in Arkansas, about this? Have you taken any calls from Tyson's, from Dillard, from Walmart? Has anyone from those companies called you about this bill?
Good question. He's going to say no, probably. No, I think the answer is yes. Kristi Noem basically openly came out and admitted that it was corporate America and it was the NCAA specifically that caused her to back down on the bill. And she tried to kind of justify it, but it really, when you got down to it, that was really what it was all about. And I can basically guarantee, I bet you the same thing happened here. You have these woke corporations, and keep in mind, this is right after seeing what happened with MLB and all these companies in Georgia. you have a governor here, probably takes a lot of money, but regardless, is just scared of the corporations. And this is what we have. We have Republicans who are freaking scared of the corporations, elected officials scared of the corporations. And you have these small government types like the guy on the right, who maybe he's just a corporate defender, probably a mixture of both, who genuinely are still stuck on this limited government, so-called limited government nonsense, when we literally have corporate America stronger again, having just such profound and unjustified influence over our elected officials in America. And no one wants to really stand up to them. We have a few that are willing to say, no, private business can be a problem. We need to actually use the government to keep private business in check. Thank you, DeSantis. But a lot of Republicans still stuck in this. Nope, it's a private company, guys. And then meanwhile, you wonder, maybe they're just saying that because of principle or because that they really believe in this small government libertarian mindset. No, actually, it's really not. It's mainly because they take money from these corporations and are kind of scared of them. So.
No, but Tucker, you're saying, first of all,
you haven't spoken
there's no
to
studies,
one
and then you cite a
corporate
study.
Interest. No. There is not a single study that I'm aware of that shows an improvement in the mental health of children who take puberty blockers, who are chemically castrated. And you couldn't cite one. You're not familiar with the research. You were told by doctors that it's a good idea, and you went with it. But I just want to clarify very quickly. Have you, and I just want to be clear on this, have you spoken to any corporate interest in the state of Arkansas about this bill?
Yes, he has. Yes, he
Tucker,
has.
I
Everyone
answered
knows
that.
he has.
I answered that question, and I said, no, I have not.
Sure.
You have another question.
Sure, buddy.
I'm skeptical because we've certainly seen across the. Let me just say, Governor, with respect, I'm skeptical that not a single corporation in the state of Arkansas has weighed in with you one way or the other on this bill. I'm skeptical.
You asked me if
but if I had a hat right here, I would say, stop the cap,
Let me emphasize, Tucker, you are a conservative. You have a great background in that. Where are we getting back to the limited role of government, that we don't have to invoke ourselves?
Shut up with your limited role of government. Limited role. Okay, we've gone over so many times, so I feel like this philosophy is so stupid. We don't have to invoke ourselves in every societal issue, really, early. Well, let's see. Conservatives have refused to invoke themselves in basically every societal issue in the last 20 years. And has that gotten us to a place where we're exactly winning or doing well off? Has sitting out of the culture war on multiple levels basically it benefited conservatism in America, or has it just literally caused the other side to take a monopoly of power over us? I won't answer that question. I'll let you decide that question. But this is just ridiculous, and by the way, the fact that he's invoking limited government on Tucker basically shows he doesn't really know what Tucker believes in. More of a populist, right? And by the way, that's where I am too. But even if you are to say, because we're talking to a limited government guy right now, okay? So even if you are to say, well, it is limited government, we're not talking about, I don't know, like just rap music that is kind of profane or something like that. No, we're talking about the chemical castration of kids here, okay? There is more than a perfectly rational, natural rights view that I could say, which is I could straight up say, just from a limited government perspective, nothing else to do with like society or conservative culture or anything like that. I could straight up just immediately say that it is a child abuse issue, because children cannot, legally consent to things. So therefore they should not be allowed to, consent to, or have their parents or whatever consent to something that has permanent mental and psychological effects in largely negative ways. That's literally all you can say. It's not that complicated. Okay. There's plenty of like limited government ways to justify from that perspective. Okay. And I have a bunch of other things I would say myself, but from that perspective, there are more than enough ways to justify stopping the government from allowing transgender reassignment treatment and surgery for people under the age of 18. The reason he doesn't want to basically endorse that or do that or go through with that, probably a few different reasons. Maybe he's just a little bit brain dead. I don't know. That's probably that could be a part of the case. Could also be because you have corporations in Arkansas that are threatening a corporate boycott. And it again gets to the point where we have corporations in America that are more powerful than the government, but you have conservatives in America who don't view that as a bad thing for some reason. Really don't know.
Let's
Okay,
limit the role of government.
Okay,
Let's let parents and
why
doctors
don't
make
we allow?
decisions.
Then why don't we allow 18-year-olds to drink beer in Arkansas? Why don't we allow them to get tattoos? Why don't we allow 15-year-olds to get married? You vetoed a bill that would have protected children, not adults, children, to whom a different standard applies, from a life-altering permanent procedure that has effects we can only guess at, but the early indication is they're very serious and very negative in some cases. And now you're telling me you do that because you're a friend of limited government? Okay, then why are we preventing kids from drinking? Sincere question. Or getting married? Sincere question. Having
Sincere
sex.
question,
They're not old enough
exactly.
to have
Many
sex,
such
but they're
cases.
old
Many
enough
such
to
cases.
be chemically castrated? How does that work exactly? I'll listen as you explain.
Well, thank you, Tucker. And first of all, these are difficult decisions. Do you want to listen to the medical profession? Do you want to listen to professional
Do I want to
counsel?
do I want to listen to the lab coats? The same lab coats that have basically scammed us and lied to us about so much over the past we'll say about the past year or so. I don't know. Let me get back to you on that one. But no, seriously, who cares about the lab coats? Okay. I mean, what kind of question is that? What kind of response is that? No, actually, I really don't care what they have to say, because the physicians, they only tell one side of the story. I mean, what about the mental and societal and moral aspects of this? No, it's not just about the lab coats here, folks. Okay, and what are the lab coats even exactly saying? I mean, what are they saying? But whatever.
Do you want to listen to parents, or do you want to leave all these decisions to the legislators that come from all different kinds of background? Yes, they're elected to represent you, but they do not necessarily make the right judgments for parents and for doctors in the most sensitive issues.
Okay, again, we're not talking about, we're not talking about something like elective surgeries in terms of like, I have a knee problem or something like that, I have some type of heart problem, health problem. Those are things that I think it should be left to be a private decision. That's not what we're talking about here, folks. We're talking about the chemical castration and sometimes surgical castration of little kids. Okay, this is not an issue of, well, do you want a big government to come in and tell you what kind of a medical procedure you can have done on your knee or your wrist? That's not what we're freaking talking about here, Mr. Governor. Okay, Mr. Arkansas over here. Jeez, what is this guy on about?
Why are we regulating the behavior of children at all if we're allowing children to decide? And by the way, I read a study today that showed the overwhelming majority of kids who do not take life-altering hormones in the end decide not to, quote, transition to a new sex. So
facts, because this is the other aspect of it. People don't want to say this. This is kind of not allowed to be said, but kids who are young, especially happens when you're younger, basically before 25, they go through phases. Okay. Kids go through phases where they will feel like a certain way, they'll kind of feel a certain thing, and this is true of transgenderism. It's also true, with there are kids who, we basically taught as a society that if your son or your daughter tells you that they're gay or lesbian, you're not allowed to any longer say, well, honey, maybe you're just confused, right? That used to be kind of the response, but it's actually a real thing. There are plenty of times and cases where, and actually I would argue it's actually most of the time when young people basically feel these feelings, they are just temporary phases that will pass. Okay. Happens with homosexuality, transgenderism, a lot of times. And so as a society, instead of like forcing people into making like life-altering decisions, such as chemically castrating yourself when you're not even freaking 18 yet, instead, we should actually understand and actually kind of take the opposite approach of, you know what, let's see if it's a phase. At least do this, okay? At least do say for a second, you know what, maybe it's a phase. We'll see. We'll let it pass a little bit. But nope. Instead, the woke agenda basically now tells you that if you, and I'm not even really straw manning or exaggerating when I say this. This is what actually you're taught now. If your 5-year-old kid tells you, 5-year-old son tells you that they think they're a girl, you have to put them on puberty blockers, let them buy dresses, dress them as a girl, and transition them into a girl. 5-year-old kid. If your 5-year-old kid even plays with your son even plays with dolls, even then,
sometimes some people say, well, nope, that she's a girl. That's a girl right there. Permanently alter their life, transition them. This is evil. This is child abuse, okay? Kids go through phases. Even like teenagers and young adults go through phases. We should not be so cavalier at the very, I mean, I don't really think we should be doing it at all, but at the very least, we should not be so cavalier as to say that we're going to let them basically make life-altering decisions that we know the data, we know the statistics have very negative mental effects on them and physical effects at an age where they can't even consent. And I would argue maybe it should even be higher than that. We should even go further than that. But at the very least, that is something that no Republican in America should be scared to say. I mean, seriously. So
What's going on here? But I'm asking as a conservative, you just invoked Ronald Reagan as if he were for chemical castration of children.
He was.
What other behavior should we not use the power of the state to regulate among kids? Seriously.
Yep. Good question.
Well,
Why
you
can't they have
debate it
sex at
every
15?
time. And so, look, Tucker, you want to keep talking? You want me?
Exactly. Why can't you, if you can change your sex at 15, why can't you have sex at 15? Okay. This guy is applying standards to his own laws that don't even, he has laws on the book in his state. Age of consent laws. Okay. Plenty of stuff like that. Age of marriage laws. All these laws of what kids can't do. Why won't he say that kids cannot chemically castrate themselves and transition to another sex or gender or whatever by the same standard? It's not big government, okay? What the hell is he saying? It's not big government. It's not overreaching government. It's actually using and applying a precedent that your so-called small government, natural rights sort of view of the world already is consistent with. Again, the real thing that's going on here, either he's just brain dead, either he's kind of scared of the woke left, or maybe more accurately, I think he's scared of the big corporations. Okay, I think that's what's really going on here. And I think you guys would agree that's what's really going on here. But
I answer a question. Tucker,
I sincerely want you to answer.
Well, thank you. And so whenever whether it's beer for minors, these are all issues that you have to address the legislature. You make judgment calls on it, but we also try to restrain ourselves as conservatives and say we don't have to be involved in every issue.
Why? Why not? Why not? Why do we restrain ourselves as conservatives, supposedly? Okay? Because I would argue, actually, I would not even argue, I think it's an objective fact that chemically castrating your kid is actually worse than giving your kid a beer, okay? Than letting a kid have a beer. Even I would say, if you're doing it protected, it's worse. Okay, it's literally worse than an underage kid having sex. Okay, so what are you talking about? That it's like, oh no, guy, oh no. Okay, listen, we regulate kids having sex. We regulate kids smoking cigarettes or having beers. But chemically castrating themselves, creating like permanent physical and mental trauma and increasing their chance at depression and suicide for the rest of their life, guys, that's the government going too far, okay, guys? I really don't believe that's the role of the government, okay? As you guys know, big government sucks, okay? Big government really sucks so bad, okay? That you know what? 5-year-old Desmond, let his crazy blue-haired soccer mom parents chemically castrate them, because after all, that would be the government doing something, and we never want the government to do anything. Shut the hell up, okay? What is it's just amusing, okay? This guy is seriously just embarrassing himself. By the way, he's not going to survive till his next term as governor. Thank you, Tucker, I think they were really planning on Sarah Huckabee Sanders running against him, and who would beat him anyway in the primary. But this sealed the deal, okay? This sealed the deal. Like the Republicans saw this, the voters saw this, okay? A career ended, but I heard he does say one. I haven't watched this interview, by the way. This is my first time seeing it. One last thing, though, I heard he does say in this interview that we really got to watch and got to address.
The party. If you want to get back to the principles, then let's at least think through in a reasoned way as to whether this is the right bill to interfere with parents and doctors' decisions on a healthcare matter, as you pointed out, does not have thorough research in every area. And so,
okay, if it doesn't have thorough research in every area, then why are we letting little kids who can't even consent to it do it? Okay,
I mean, first of all, I think there are plenty of bad mental effects, and the reason why I think it's immoral. But if we're even just to talk about physical medical effects, if you're openly admitting that we don't really know what we're doing with this, and we could be creating serious just physical medical problems for them too, that's another freaking reason among the high list of reasons as to why kids should not be allowed to be chemically castrated, even if they say they want to do it, even if their parents say they want to do it. I don't care. Don't let them do it, okay? And we can talk about the rest of society too, because I think there should be limits on that too. But at the very least, okay, at the very least, can we agree, Republicans? Okay, can we at least agree on the little kids part? All right. Can we get like one moral victory for once? No, we can't because Asa Hutchinson over here, his name is literally Ass, by the way. Okay, very funny, but his name's literally Ass. So Ass Hutchinson over here says, nope. You know what? That's big government. Okay, sir. Like, oh my
I yield
gosh.
to that. But whenever you look at this bill, in my
yield
veto
to the lack of
it,
research. Really quick, 10 years ago, if somebody had said, hey, Asa Hutchinson, you're going to be governor of Arkansas, and you're going to veto
It's not Asa Hutchinson, it's Ass Hutchinson, okay? His name's Ass Hutchinson. Get it right, Tucker.
a bill that would have protected children from chemical castration, what do you think you would have said?
well, just like I said,
I would have said, hi, my name's Ass Hutchinson. Oh my gosh.
today, if you're talking about a reassignment surgery, I would have signed that bill in a minute. But whenever you're talking about maybe less than 200 kids in Arkansas that's currently on hormone treatment, and they are immediately cut off without having a grandfather clause in this legislation, I don't think that's treating those kids or their parents or their health care providers fairly or equally.
All right. That's the conservative position. Governor, thanks. I appreciate you coming on.
That's a conservative position from Ass Hutchinson, everyone, okay? Did I mention to you his name is Ass Hutchinson? Okay, I don't know if I remember to mention that, okay? But Ass Hutchinson. Okay, so I saw on Twitter, I don't know if I missed it or just didn't hear it. I saw on Twitter somewhere that in this debate, and maybe I was just talking and just was like being a loudmouth during it, so I didn't hear it. But I heard somewhere on Twitter that in this interview, he basically said that we need to embrace laws like this because we want more Republican voters or whatever. Like he actually sort of made this argument. Same argument as like Karlin Borisenko. Remember that that from that debate we that slightly offensive debate that we reacted to a few weeks ago. You know, kind of went with the same sort of nonsense where they were like, well, we need to we need to just totally cave on the issue of child transgenderism because we got to expand our voters and we got to expand the Republican tent. Okay. Now I maybe I missed in an interview, but I heard he said that everyone on Twitter was kind of making fun of him for this. Okay. So I don't know exactly where, but he apparently did say this. Okay. So let me ask you, Governor Ass Hutchinson. Okay. Governor Ass of Arkansas. Please tell me. So we know that like LGBT in general individuals are like 2% of the US population, probably even a smaller percentage of the Arkansas population, because I would assume most of them live in like California and New York and places like that, you know. And I think transgenders are like what, 0.2%, 0.3%, 0.4%, something like that. Very small portion of the population here. And as he said, like 200 people in Arkansas and in the whole state. Okay. All right. So with that under consideration, who exactly are you expanding this tent supposedly to? You know, by the way, who are the people who voted for you in the state of Arkansas? You think they're going to be happy with this? Huh? You think they're going to be happy with this? You're talking about, I would assume it's in the freaking Bible Belt, a very Christian, presumably like Baptist, Protestant kind of, probably some evangelicals, you know, kind of place, kind of state. Are you expanding? Are you expanding your outreach to those people when you support child transgenderism and child chemical castration? By the way, you want to talk? I've gone over this a few different times, but if you want to talk about expanding the Republican base, who are we expanding it to? Every attempt the Republicans have made over the past few years
of expanding our vote to the LGBT voters of all types has failed. It's been a massive failure. It's just been utterly futile. Whatever slight gains Republicans have made with gays or whatever, first of all, are totally insignificant considering that we're talking about 2% of the population, and then we're talking about what, like 20% of 2%. So how much is that? Like 0.1%. Like that's terrible math. Please, I did not do that. Well, but we're talking about a very small share of the population here, okay? And it just doesn't work, okay? Oh, what does he think? What does he think? Suddenly he'll be seen as like a grand hero of LGBT voters and the LGBT sort of political community and political activism because he refused to sign this transgender bill? No, that's really not what's going to happen. Okay, that's really not what's going to happen. He's basically, no matter what, he'll be seen as like an anti-gay candidate anyway, because that's how Republican governors in Arkansas will be unanimously portrayed no matter what they do, okay? So with that being said, who exactly are you expanding the base to? We know this. We know that there are of people that Republicans need to expand the tent to, okay? There are two very important sort of demographic groups that Republicans need to be expanding to. Number one is the white working class, okay? This is more of the case in states like, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan and Minnesota, Ohio, those kind of states. But it is generally true even nationwide, right? You have a white working class everywhere. Do you think the white working class, who is generally pretty socially conservative, and working class people in general, people who actually work for a living, behind like a blue collar job, in general, are rather socially conservative? Do you think that that chemically castrating little kids, do you think that expands the tent to them, or you think that actually turns them away? Let's talk even further about the second group. The second group that, and now if you want to break it down racially, who do Republicans need to expand the tent to? Well, it's not to LGBT, it's not to the blacks, it's actually to the Hispanics. That is the most practical, that's the most realistic, and that's the most mathematically significant community that Republicans can expand the tent to. Now you look at the Hispanic community. Very, very religious when you look at the numbers. Very religious, very Catholic. So very Catholic, very pro-God, pro-family, pro-life, so hence socially conservative. Now, there's a lot of different reasons why Republicans have a hard time with Hispanics, but even then, you're starting to see those trends kind of shift a little bit. Down in South Texas, you look at the trends in 2020 from the Rio Grande Valley. Republicans moved the Mexicans specifically down there like 30, 40 points to the right in some places. You look at a place like Starr County, moved 40 points to the right from 2016. Okay, so you're seeing this sort of shift. Okay, do you think those very Catholic, church-going, God-fearing Hispanics, those voters, do you think that they're shifting to the Republicans because they realize now that the Republicans are like, oh well, they're just as pro-LGBT as the Democrats are? Or do you think it's actually because of like the opposite reason? Because they see that the Democrats have abandoned God, have abandoned order, have abandoned tradition, social conservatism, have totally abandoned the family structure, right? Why do you think it is? And how do you think it is that you're going to expand the tent further beyond these groups? Okay. Do you think it's going to be by making pandering moves to transgender children? Or do you think it's by actually playing into beliefs and views that the people you want to vote for you actually hold? This is true of the white working class in the Midwest, by the way, too. A lot of them are a lot more God-fearing and church-going and more Christian. You have a lot of Catholics in the Midwest, by the way. That's also true. But so you see the kind of the parallel with the Hispanics. But generally more socially conservative people. They're not really on board with all these rapid sort of changes. You know what I mean? They're not really for all this progressive woke nonsense that comes out of places like New York City and Los Angeles. They're kind of against that. So what do you want to do? And by the way, they kind of find a lot of it to be abhorrent, actually. So what do? Do you take the side of them? Do you actually go out after what they believe? Or do you try and fail to appease like 0.2% of the population, hoping that you'll have slightly better Republican turnout in New York City? Yeah, It's pretty obvious, okay? Stop this brain dead sort of idea of pandering in the American electorate. It's not true, okay? It's not true. It's not going to work. And I think that's a misconception that a lot of Republicans have, which is that, in order to let me actually move this off the screen now. What was I saying? I totally forgot what I was saying. Sorry, guys. I got no sleep last night. But anyways, if you want to expand the tent, okay, there's this misconception basically that being socially conservative, and don't get me wrong, in terms of elections, yeah, okay, I get it, okay, you do. There is such a thing as going too far, not necessarily in terms of what I believe always, but yes, it might sort of turn off some voters if you're going too cavalier on it. But let me just be frank with you guys, folks. That is not going to happen, okay? You look at where the Republican Party is now. However far right we're able to push them on the social issues, that's not going to be nearly far right enough, nearly too austere or traditionalist enough. When you compare where they are right now to where they should be, we are never even going to realistically be able to push them in that direction. So with that being said, there is this misconception. We're too socially conservative. If we just became a little bit more woke, we'd win votes. Doesn't work. Because the demographics that we're actually trying to win, they are not woke demographics themselves, And by the way, when we go after the woke demographics, we fail because, like I always say, Democrats are always will always be able to outwoke the Republicans. And LD, does that stand for Lamar Davis? Okay, GTA 5 reference, but LD sends me $15. Thank you very much for the super chat, shoot, my guy. God bless you, LD. But these are socially conservative groups. And the reason, by the way, they vote for Democrats is really not because they agree with the woke agenda, okay? Traditionally speaking, a lot of these groups, but let's take the white working class, for instance. Traditionally, here you have a group that voted Democrat mainly out of economic issues, right? They're kind of economic populists, and Democrats for a lot of decades used to present themselves as the party of that white working class, okay? But keep in mind, that was always the thing. Now, as Democrats have gone further to the left, not just economically, right, because there's, I guess, sort of that economic component to it too, but especially as Democrats have gone far to the left on social issues, that's where you have a lot of Republicans, of white working class voters turning to the Republicans. So with that in mind, if we're saying, hey, you know what, white working class, you belong here. You belong in our tent, not their tent. Is the solution to appeal to the fact that they think Democrats have gone too far to the left on social issues, or is the solution to say, you know what, we're basically almost like the Democrats on social issues? Same thing with the Hispanics, by the way. Yeah, there's a clear answer. Okay, there's a very clear answer. Vanessa Productions says funds for Dao Nation. It's not Dao Nation, by the way. It's Dao Empire. Okay, but thank you. The Empire gladly accepts your tribute. Thank you very much, Vanessa, for the $5. But there you go, folks. All right. That was like an hour long. Weak Republicans. You got to primary these people out of office, okay? And don't get me wrong, I don't think everyone is worth primarying, right? I don't think, I don't know, is Greg Abbott even running for re-election? He's probably not our best focus, but people like this Arkansas governor, that's an easy primary target, okay? Because like I said, we're up against a lot in this country, and we have now, you literally look at this, corporations and basically businesses, big business, is happening in states like South Dakota and Arkansas. Good job on Georgia, by the way, for not caving yet, but we'll see. I don't really trust the Georgia Republican Party that much, so we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully they don't. But basically what you have is these big business, these corporations that are on the side of Democrats. Democrats really have become the party of corporate America. You have them basically my AirPods died. What they will do, okay, what they'll do is whenever Republicans try to pass a bill in these states that they don't like, they'll just threaten them. They'll just say, if you pass this bill, we're moving out of your state. And the governor's like,
please don't move out of our state. Kristi Noem comes up and is like, okay, I'm sorry, NCAA, we won't do the bill now. Arkansas governor is like, I'm sorry, Tyson Foods and all the cows or whatever the hell they grow in Arkansas. Sorry, we won't do the bill now, sir. Okay, so this is what you're now seeing. They tried to do it with Georgia. Luckily, we don't see Georgia caving just yet, although we kind of have seen this from the Georgia GOP. So let's see what happens. Let's see if they actually do manage to not cave. Okay. That's kind of a question that's still up in the air, but you will see this happen more and more. I mean, you will, especially if our Republicans now, if the Republican Party of now caves in on these issues and basically says that it basically shows corporate America that they can be controlled and that corporate America can undemocratically, indirectly force policy in the government and dictate the policy of the government, then what do you think is going to happen? It's only going to get worse. They're going to be more emboldened. If MLB and United Airlines sees, hey, what we did in Georgia worked. Okay, it worked with voting laws. And like I said, we haven't seen it yet, but let's say it happens, which it very well could. We have to keep an eye out for that. If they cave to them, then what's going to happen? Well, they're just gonna start doing it for every single thing. Every single thing Republicans try to pass, the corporations are gonna say, like, come out and say, well, we support both parties, but this fundamentally goes against our values. And we over here at United Airlines strongly believe in the. Hold on. Oop. Did I break this? Well, that was very wise of me. All right, I just did a low IQ thing. Please ignore that. Please pretend like that never happened, folks. But as I was saying, what the hell broke? What even is this? I don't even know what happened. Okay. We believe that you shouldn't be allowed to have an AR-15, and so until Georgia or Arizona or wherever reverses their gun laws, we will be withdrawing. And then setting this very dangerous precedent, what's going to happen? Doug Ducey or Brian Kemp comes out, it's like, okay, never mind, I'm vetoing the bill, guys, okay, because I support our corporations over our voters. That's why, folks. I mean, like I said, not everyone's a perfect primary target, but we have to be primarying these people as much as possible, okay? Because if these people are allowed to stay in office and corporate America is allowed to use the bully pulpit more and more, they're going to use it more and more, and they're just going to become bolder and bolder to the point where it's like freaking out of control. And do you want that? Or do you want a Republican Party that now and here will stand up to corporate America and says, no, you're not going to rule over us. No, you're not going to be more powerful than the government. Okay. And if necessary, we're going to use Section 230. We're going to use antitrust legislation, and we're going to use the bully pulpit. Now, you want to use the bully pulpit as corporate America. We are going to use the bully puppet as the government, ultimately the supreme authority in this country, to go after you too. Okay, you will face the consequences of it too. That's what I would like to see happen. That's not what I think is going to see. That's not what I think I'm going to see happen, though. However. Which is very sad. We're going to primary these people, folks. Okay. I'm sorry. We can't have a Republican Party that just bows down to corporations. Okay. It's not going to work. This is not going to function. Okay. And by the way, it's not going to win you voters either. All right. It's just not, we are the party realignment is clear. We are becoming the party demographically of the working class, whether we like it or not. There's a lot of people in the Republican Party that don't really want to embrace sort of this working class nationalist vision of the future. But it doesn't matter. Who the hell? I don't really care what they believe, because it's very clear that's the coalition we now need to win these elections. And so it doesn't matter how much money corporate America just tries to give us. They're not going to give us money, by the way, folks. Okay. I mean, look at the corporate donations in 2020 of Biden versus Trump. That'll tell you a lot. That'll basically give you your answer to this, right? Even if we were to say we get benefits or money from corporations, which we don't even get that anymore, it's not going to get you voters. Shilling for corporate America is not going to get you voters popular. It's especially not popular with the working class. And it's really not popular with anyone in this country, but except the rich, except, the people who are at the very top of those corporations, who, by the way, nowadays vote for the Democrats too. So there really is no reason. There's really no excuse to not stand up to corporate America. Oh, but it's gonna economically hurt my state. You'll recover, okay? Like, trust me, you'll be fine. Okay, you'll be fine, because whatever corporation leaves, small businesses and smaller corporations are going to come to fill the void. Okay, trust me that when I say that there are plenty of businesses, now they might not be the big businesses, they might not be Amazon and Google and United Airlines and Delta Airlines and stuff like that, but trust me when I say that there are plenty of businesses in general, smaller, but more of them, who want to move to states like Florida and Georgia and Arizona and Texas. They want to move to states with Republican policies, okay? Because it is a fact that it is just better to start and have a business, small, medium, or large, even large. Although I don't know, because we're now getting to the point where Democrats are basically just giving them all the tax loopholes. So I don't even know if that's true now. But we'll say small to medium. It is just a universal fact that it is much easier, it's much better to start a smaller business in a state like Georgia than a state like California, So you will get plenty of smaller businesses, smaller companies who are more than happy to fill the void left by one of these big businesses. You might lose some jobs in the short term, but I'll tell you what, you're gonna have a basically new market of small business grow in the state. It's going to be very popular because people appreciate sort of that more localized sort of sense of community. And most importantly, all of the blue ass Democratic voters that these big corporations, like the film industry in Georgia and the whatnot, what have you, all of the Democrat voters, the tech company in Austin, Texas, the tech companies, all of them, when the corporations leave, most of them are going to leave too. Okay. Which means what? Which means now you have a state that is open for business, but for small business, for the inherently just more American feeling, not the transnational, but kind of the American feeling of businesses in your state. And you will in the long term save the electorate. And I'll tell you what, short-term economic detriment, economic loss, in my opinion, is way preferable than in the long term becoming a Democratic state, because all the tech companies now moved to Texas and brought all the Democrats with them, or all of Hollywood moved to Georgia and brought all their Democrats with them, or all of New York City moved to Florida and brought all of their Democrats with them. I would rather face short-term economic detriment that, by the way, the state will easily recover from, because Republican and conservative policy is just more business-friendly in general. I'd much rather have that, okay? So we got to stand up to these corporations. There really is no excuse. There's no excuse from Ass Hutchinson, okay? No excuse, buddy. Get on it or get out. Well, he is going to get out. He's going to be primaried by Sarah Sanders in like a year anyway. So we don't have to worry too much about Ass Hutchinson. And by the way, the ironic part, he was overridden, by the way. The state legislature overrode his veto, and they were able to accumulate the numbers to override his veto, partly because of Democratic legislators in Arkansas, because you still do have some more traditional Democrats down there that are associated with that old kind of Southern Democratic Party, that working class Democratic Party. And we got Democrats out here making better decisions than the Republicans. Nonsense. It is ridiculous. Okay. And DK Menace 1990 makes a great point. He says, next test for Republicans is to stop Biden's gun confiscation. Very true. 100% agree. And as I've been saying, nullification. You need to call your state legislators if you live in a Republican state. It's kind of a waste of time in Democrat states. But we need to be putting pressure on Republican state legislatures and Republican governors to be ready or already have plans in place to be nullifying federal gun laws. You have kind of skeletons of this already taking place in, I think it was like Wyoming and Montana, those states. Actually, yesterday, okay, and Doug Ducey, by the way, is someone I criticize a lot, okay? Not really the biggest fan of him, but I will give him credit on this one thing, and I will give the entirety of the Arizona Republican Party credit on this one thing. As bad as they are on some things, I will give them credit on this. Yesterday, Doug Ducey signs a law barring both the state government and the local governments from enforcing federal gun laws. Okay? So this is kind of already the skeletons in place for nullification as soon as it starts, as soon as it happens, right? And I gotta give Doug Ducey credit. I gotta give the state of Arizona credit for this. They're actually, when I really look at it, we really break it down. Arizona, very surprising because it is the state of John McCain, but it is true. Arizona is the most gun-friendly state in the United States, at least for now. Now, if Democrats win in 2022, probably won't be the case, right? But as for now, the reason I say this largely is because Arizona actually has no gun laws. Arizona has no state gun laws. The only gun laws that apply there are federal gun laws, which means there's basically no rules there besides the federal rules, like background check. You don't have to register your gun in the state of Arizona. Okay, it's a great state in terms of guns. Now, Doug Ducey is someone who is very weak and really has caved to the left a million different times now. But I will give him credit. I will say that he was basically the first major state to come out with nullification, to come out and say that we are doing nullification. We are nullifying Joe Biden's planned gun laws. Got to give the guy credit for that. Now, where are you, Texas? Okay, where are you, Texas? Okay, we're always criticizing Greg Abbott here again. Not just because he's just kind of a weak guy, but because all the Republican states follow him. Okay, so the second that Greg Abbott signs an executive order or a law on the issue of nullifying federal gun law, all the other Republican states will follow. Unfortunately, knowing Greg Abbott, it'll probably be some type of law that looks or sounds like, same thing with the vaccine passport. It'll be something that seems like he's nullifying federal gun law, but he's actually not when you read between the lines. That's probably what's going to be the case. And then unfortunately, all the other Republican states are going to follow. And so it's going to be basically a useless form of nullification. But come on, Texas, where are you? Come on, Ron DeSantis, where are you, my guy? I think that's the one thing Ron DeSantis has not really proven himself on yet is the issue of guns. You got to do it, Ron. Come on. We're waiting on you. Your state should be a constitutional carry or at least an open carry state to begin with anyway. Okay. But you want to talk about guns? Come on, my guy. Come on. You got to get that nullification ready or else, we all know Ron DeSantis wants to run for president at some point. You got to have that A+ rating from the NRA, my guy. I mean, come on. But I won't attack DeSantis. I like DeSantis. I'm sure knowing him, he has plans in place for it. All right. So, I won't go after him for it, but I'm just saying we need all the Republicans to fall in line for this. Imagine how epic it would be. Okay. Epic in many ways, some optical, some unoptical, but whatever, it's fine. Imagine how epic it would be to look at a map of the United States of America and to see all of these states, all of these Republican states that are colored red because they nullified Joe Biden's gun plans, whether it's on executive order, whatever he's going to pass in Congress when he eventually decides to do it. Imagine how awesome it would be to have this little freedom zone within the United States of basically all these Republican states. And I think a lot of people would look at that and kind of say, well, you know what? That's kind of setting the tone. That's kind of setting the tone for something else that I won't mention here because it's not exactly optical to say, but imagine how amazing that would be. We need to see it happen, okay? Tell all your legislators, nullification now, folks, okay? And have them be ready to do it too. We can't really be waiting on this stuff. So basically, that basically wraps up what I had for this show. We can go to Q&A in a second. Let me peruse, make sure I didn't miss anything that I was really planning to talk about here, and then we can go through to Q&A. We can talk about our questions a little bit. Let's see here. I guess I guess we didn't talk that much about. Have I talked about the actual contents of the Georgia gun law, Georgia election laws on this channel? I'm not exactly sure, but let me just scroll through. Let me just see what's been. Oh, I guess I could talk about that. Oh, my camera died. Hold on, give me a second. That actually died faster than I thought. Okay. Anyways. Let me change out the battery on my camera right here. You know what? screw it. Let's just take questions right now. Let's just go through the chat for a few minutes, and then I'll decide if I want to kind of pick up the news cycle again. Okay, so yeah, let's do that. Drop your questions right now in the chat, folks. Drop questions, comments, things you want to talk about. If you want them to be given priority, you can send them as a super chat. If not, you can send them as a regular chat. I'll try to get to it. And let's do this. But now I gotta. Where the hell is my camera battery? I don't know what I did with. Oh, here it is. Okay. For now. Just give me a second. Let me switch this out and drop those things in the chat, folks. Let's talk about it, and we'll talk about that for a few minutes. We'll go through the chat for a few minutes, and then we will get back to some news here, folks. Okay, if that sounds good. No freaking way. Nathaniel Abbott's in chat. Let's go. Let's go. What's up, King? How you doing, sir? Is this the real Nathaniel Abbott, or is this like a one of those troll accounts? I don't even know, because one time I had this. I just had random parts of you guys. You guys just made accounts like Donald Trump, Kanye West, and like Elon Musk. Like you guys literally just made random accounts and were like role playing, LARPing in my freaking live chat. So I don't know if that's the case, but I do believe it's probably the real Mr. Abbott. What's up, King? How you doing, sir? Let me switch out this camera battery right here. Hold on. I'm being an R word right now. Okay, we'll talk about this in a second. Can you make a comprehensive argument for tariffs? I see the deal. Hold on. I see the appeal, but I want a definitive answer. Some people say that tariffs hurt the economy by taking money from industries. Thoughts? I'll answer that in a second. Give me a second. Let me switch cameras here. Okay. Now it should be good. So we got switching. All right, there we go. Okay. Tariffs question. Let me just screw this on. We'll be good to go. We'll be good to go, folks. All right. All right. There we are, ladies and gentlemen. Boys and girls. We are back. We're back in HD here, folks. Caught in 4K, as the stupid BLM girls always say. All right. Tariffs. So it is true that tariffs. So you need to. The argument for tariffs is basically that, yes, in the long term, for net economic growth, the best thing you could do for, again, we're talking net economic growth. Best thing you can do is have a totally open borders, open market, free trade, globalized world. Okay. If you want to get the GDP up, that's what you do. There's not really any denying that, because that's basically true. The argument for tariffs is that is not all that matters in this economy, right? We hold on, let me move this camera back to the center. Okay. That is not like I don't believe that GDP growth is all that matters in this economy, in this country, right? I do believe in protecting American industries and keeping especially American manufacturing here at home. Now, there are a lot of reasons for that. Some might say that it's important to actually keep culturally sort of this idea of self-sufficiency, working class, like a strong working and middle class. But on a practical level, you could also say that it's just a national security issue. To become totally reliant on the global market for trade is very unstable, because the second that, let me give you like historical examples of this. The second that there's a revolution in Iran, or the second that China decides they don't like us anymore, the second any country we trade with basically turns on us, what do? We need to be self-sufficient, right? That's something I strongly believe. We need to be self-sufficient as a country, because we are not totally sovereign as a country unless we're self-sufficient as a country. In terms of, besides just like war or Cold War, right? It is also true to a large degree that if we are reliant on other countries for trade, we have to have a hand in those countries' politics as well. Okay. And this also gets into the issue of sovereignty, of a sovereign nation, right? Because it's just true. If America is very reliant on another country for trade, which we do have a few countries like that in the world, we're not totally sovereign in our own political interests. Our leaders are always having to think about, how do I make XYZ country happy? So that way we can make sure they don't turn on us in terms of a trading relationship. Okay. So
if we first are to establish that self-sufficiency, even at sort of the cost of some economic growth, which will happen, right? Like I said, if you want the GDP to go up as much as possible, open the borders, open the markets to everything. But if we are to establish that self-sufficiency and at least some degree, hopefully a large degree, but at least some degree of manufacturing and American industries here at home are important, then the case for tariffs basically becomes that the goal of something like tariffs is to protect a certain American industry from typically from outsourcing, right? Example of this. Let's just take an example. And not to say that it always works. I don't think tariffs are the only part of the solution. I think there's a lot of other things you have to do to sort of incentivize production at home. But let's just say, for example, an auto company moves to Japan. Let's just say Japan. Auto company moves their manufacturing to Japan because let's just say, I mean, I don't know how the market is in Japan in terms of American companies actually moving their production over there. But let's just say auto company moves to Japan because it's cheaper to produce there. Okay. Now, once again, and because it's cheaper to produce there, because they're operating at a lower cost, it will increase their profits, which hypothetically should grow the economy more, right? If the company's making more profit, they'll invest in more, they'll spend more, they'll hire more workers, stuff like that, right? And people here will be able to buy the car at a cheaper price, but that's only one part of the picture. There's the other part of this picture is that now that we've established that self-sufficiency is important, now that we've established, hey, even if it's at the cost of some economic growth, we want to be producing our own cars because what happens if we can't get our cars from Japan? What are we going to do? Okay, establishing that, then the case for tariffs is basically that if whatever company, let's just say Ford moves, it's more realistic to say Ford moves to Mexico, but for this example, Ford moved to Japan because their operating costs are lower there. What tariffs do is raise the operating costs of moving to Japan, hopefully to say that, oh, okay, before it was cheaper, now because of the tariff, it's more expensive to produce in Japan than it is in the United States. So you better bring your plant home to the United States because if you don't, you're going to be operating in a loss. And then the company kind of then says, all right, fine. The prices are too high in this other country. We're going to move back to the United States. That's basically the main case for tariffs. Okay. And you also have retaliatory tariffs, right? Basically, Trump sort of tried to do this to try to get a new trade deal with China. That is another argument for it. And you are kind of walking a risky line a lot of times with using tariffs like that. But it's not a totally invalid, solution. Just you actually got to be careful in the way you do it. There's also the if you want to bring a country to the table in terms of trade, renegotiate a trade deal, and you want to kind of use leverage on them, you could use tariffs on their products to hurt their manufacturing industries and basically make it harder for them to sell to our markets in exchange to say, well, look, we're hurting your economy. We're hurting your industry now. Now come to the table and negotiate with us. So that's another way you can use tariffs. That's basically that's more of how Trump used tariffs during his presidency. And it worked to a lot of degree. It worked in a lot of ways, right? Because you did see, as a result of these tariffs, you did see a lot of new trade deals. And if he got to finish his presidency, you probably see even more trade deals that were a result of this form of negotiating. So that does work. But I would say the main point of tariffs is one way. I think there's also the other way of, maybe in terms of just making it easier, kind of incentivizing the growth of business here. That's another aspect of it. But it's one way to basically demand that companies operate here instead of in another country. Okay. R. Frank Bass says Nathaniel Abbott and Vince Dao collab. Yes, sir. Okay, yes, sir. Look, we're gonna make it happen at some point. All right. Shout out Nathaniel Abbott. By the way, guys, go if you're not subscribed to him and you don't know who he is. He's like John Doyle's like childhood best friend, basically. Like correct me if I'm wrong, Nathaniel, but I'm pretty sure like you guys are the boys. But he's basically John Doyle's best friend. Used to be cameraman for a lot of years, cameraman Badan, and he makes pretty like really good content, really funny, but also like thought-provoking and actually serious content. So go subscribe to his channel at Nathaniel Abbott. So all right. Anyways, let me look around. I took a lot of time on that question. So should we get back to the news or should we
Take a look. All right, let's see. Red and blue debate says, if I might need to elaborate. If there's a $20 tariff on sweaters, I pay an extra $20. That $20 now doesn't get spent on other products, thereby hurting that industry. Well, like I said, the idea of tariffs is not the idea here. Okay, is not that you're going to pay that extra $20 on tariffs. The idea instead would be, in order to avoid making you pay for that extra $20, the company is going to start making that sweater in America. Or hopefully the other alternative is that you don't buy from that company. Instead, you buy from a company that either does favorably trade with the United States or just produces in the United States. So that's really the idea that we're trying to get at here, right? The point of a tariff is not just to make it harder on to consumers, but to actually incentivize, our own industries. So let's say it is true that it's more expensive to produce in the United States, okay? But let's say the sweater that's made in America costs $30. The sweater that's made in, let's say, what's a clothing producing country? Vietnam. We'll just say Vietnam. Okay. The sweater that's produced in Vietnam costs $20. Now, regularly, consumers would buy the sweater that's produced in Vietnam because it's cheaper, assuming the sweaters are of equal quality. But now, if the tariff raises the price of that sweater to $40, then guess what? Now it's actually the American sweater that becomes cheaper. And so that's the point. And if you're going to implement tariffs, you obviously have to have some type of goal in mind or some type of alternative industry or production in America that you're trying to promote, right? So that's what I'm saying. Now, if we have like zero sweaters in America and the goal of the tariff is not to bring sweater production to America, then really the tariff is frankly quite pointless, right? Because unless the goal is to incentivize American industry or incentivize the creation of American industry, then a tariff is pointless. And I see what you're saying there. But what I'm saying on tariffs is that you wouldn't even buy the $40 jacket that's made in Vietnam or whatever. You would buy the $30 jacket that's made in America. So all right. She says, sure, the sweater gets an extra $20. No, that's not true. The sweater industry doesn't get an extra $20 because a tariff is a tax. So it would go to the government. The government would get an extra $20. The sweater industry doesn't make any additional profit. So I don't really know what the point is there. But yeah. All right. A little bit of a chat. Let's get back to the news a little bit here, folks. I wanted to actually talk a little bit more about Georgia. Because you have this idea going around. Okay. I wish I could call Chandler Crump right now. I wonder what he's doing. I want to actually call, because I know he has a real ID, okay, like a government ID. I should call him right now and be like, Chandler, are you black? He's going to say yes. I think he's black, guys. I don't know. Do you guys, I don't want to be rude, but I think he's black. Yeah, okay. I'm going to say, Chandler, are you black? Yes. And you were able to get an ID? Yes. And you live in the state of Georgia? He does, by the way. Yes. What the hell is going on? Okay. It's very stupid, though. This idea that minorities somehow can't get an ID, or here's another one, they can't afford to get an ID. That's not true, actually, because in states where voter ID is required, the state government gives you and is required to give you free IDs anyway. Okay. So that whole argument's kind of asinine, if I were to say so myself. But this idea that minorities can't get ID, by the way, I just wanted to say my wallet is downstairs. Okay. I can't get it. I'm a minority. Okay. And this is a true okay. I need to tell this story. It's a very ironic story. So on April 24th, I'm making a speech at a political event in Montana. By the way, if you live on the eastern side of Montana, if you live in Helena and you're interested in coming, seeing me speak and meeting me, DM me on Instagram. I'll give you the details. I'll give you the ticket link and everything, right? But I'm speaking at this event in Montana. Okay. So weeks ago, and I wouldn't have done this now because I'm not happy with Delta Airlines and the way they responded to it. But it was before this even happened. I booked a flight with Delta. Okay. Delta Airlines to get to Montana. Now, by the way, my birthday is on April 19th. Okay, so I turn 18 on April 19th. So, and by the way, I'm really lagging on my driver's license. I don't even have a driver's license yet. So a few weeks ago, I was like, shoot, I'm flying right after my birthday. I need to get an ID because I'm not going to be I was fine flying under 18 because you don't need a ID under 18 to fly, but over 18 I was like, oh shoot, I'm going to need an ID. Okay. So I went to the DMV. Okay. I'm a minority. I went to the DMV. But I didn't go to any DMV. I went to a DMV in Pacoima, California. Okay. So this is a very poor neighborhood, and this is like almost an entirely Hispanic neighborhood. Okay. So it wasn't like I strolled into some all-white DMV and that's how I was able to get the ID. No. Went to the DMV in a relatively impoverished and also very minority, very Hispanic area. And guess what? I applied for a real ID. Guess what? A week and a half later, I got that real ID in the mail. And it wasn't that freaking hard. Okay? By the way, it was a pretty actually fast process. You know, and keep in mind, this is the California DMV, and this is in the ghetto. Okay? And I managed to still get in and out within an hour. Okay? Within an hour at the DMV. So what the hell are people talking about? Minorities don't know how to get IDs. Minorities have a hard time getting IDs. By the way, I heard someone make a great point today. They were basically talking about how, you have Black and Hispanic people actually buy alcohol and cigarettes at higher rates than white. They drink and they smoke at higher rates than whites. And those are all things that require IDs. So this idea that, we know it's ridiculous. Okay. We know it's ridiculous. This whole idea that, voter minorities are not able to get IDs is very stupid. And we know that's not the reason why Democrats don't want voter ID. They don't want voter ID for a different reason. Okay. And I'm not really allowed to say what reason that is on YouTube. We already got like one video taken down because of this. But I will let you decide why exactly the real reason is that they don't want voter ID. Now, what I will say is that on the issue of voter ID, if you are too dumb, or you're just too lazy, or you're just too incompetent to go through the process of getting an ID, if for whatever reason you're not able to do that, or you're not willing to do that, hot take, I know, but I'm going to say it. You shouldn't be voting in the first place. All right? You really should. If you're so dumb that you can't figure out how to get a government ID, very easy process, then you should not be voting. Okay? Because let me tell you, the Democrats and the liberal media and corporate America as well, and everyone who thinks they're woke out there, they basically view democracy. You always talk about democracy prevailed, guys. Guys, democracy prevailed in November 2020. Did corporate America spend 10 minutes while forgetting to tell you that? Didn't remember to tell you that in the last 10 minutes? Well, guess what? Now here's your reminder that democracy prevailed in November 2020. Don't you know? Don't you remember that? Okay. All about democracy, folks. Now, they only celebrate democracy. They celebrate high voter turnout as a good thing. They're like, guys, in 2020, it was so good. It was so good that all the uneducated, uninformed, ignorant, lazy, uncaring, not invested people, wasn't it such a great thing that they all showed up to vote? And the answer is no, okay? No. Listen, a democracy, quote unquote, okay, is only as good, is only as strong as the voters that are voting in that so-called democracy, okay? Now, any type of democratic system only works if the general populace who is voting in these elections, is actually invested and actually cares and actually is informed enough to make informed decisions. Because again, we have a system where the people are indirectly calling the shots in our government. Okay? And if you're too stupid that you can't figure out the process of getting ID, I'm sorry. Me personally, I really don't want you making decisions for our government and about our government. All right? And this is also true just in general. And this is why I actually think that, higher voter turnout is actually a bad thing. Practically speaking. Okay? Practically speaking. Q-Tip says, haha, I'm not going to lie. In our day and age, in our youth, I think changing the voting age to 21 wouldn't be a bad idea. I agree. Okay. I actually agree. Let's do that. Okay. I don't care. I'll sit out voting for a little while. Stop the stupid young people from voting. Okay. I actually think that's a great idea. Raise the draft age to so the original reason why the voting age was lower to 18 was because the draft age was 18 and all the Vietnam War activists were like, well, what the hell? You're drafting us to war, but you're not letting us vote. Which, to be fair, is kind of a fair argument. They should be the same age, I think, in my opinion. But I'll say, okay, let's raise the draft age to 21. And then guess what? Oh, the voting age has to go up with it, guys. Oh, no. Okay, how could this ever be? I think that's a great idea. We should raise the voting age to 21. Unironically, okay? Unironically, folks. Democracy is only as good as the people who are voting in it. And I don't think it should be easier to vote. I actually think it should be harder to vote. And by the way, I'm not saying that anyone should be disenfranchised. Okay, that would be pretty unoptical of me to say, and genuinely, that's not something I really support. I also think it's pretty dangerous, especially for the government to kind of come in and this is, I know I'm making like a small government. But it is kind of true. It's dangerous to have the government have the power of deciding who can and can't vote, because that means, once Democrats take that government, they're basically going to say that all of us are not eligible to vote. And then what happens, right? So I think if you're going to do that, you should just install Baron Trump as the emperor if you're going to do that. But talking seriously, with that being said, I don't think that everyone should be voting. People always say, you should get out and vote. No, you shouldn't. Unless you really care and you're really invested, no, you shouldn't. Stay home. Because we want people who actually care enough about the politics to be involved in the politics only. Okay? And by the way, this is something that the Founding Fathers believed. The Founding Fathers didn't want everyone voting in elections. At the time, they only wanted property owners voting in elections. Then it kind of expanded after that. But there are some aspects of what the founders believed on voting that are quite unoptical in the modern day. But fundamentally, their sentiment that we shouldn't just have total majority rule, and we should kind of have only kind of a smaller number of people involved in the democratic process in order to ensure that the people involved in that democratic process are educated and qualified to actually be doing so. That sentiment of the Founding Fathers, I still firmly believe is true and is correct. Okay. And so when Democrats come out here and always say, and all these people, and I see a lot of Republicans fall for it, by the way, too, say, it's so great that everyone showed up and voted in 2020, that we have the highest voter turnout ever. I say, why is that such a good thing? Because I guess when voter turnout increases over time, you could say, well, that's just because more people have access to media, to news, to politics. More people, that the entry level of the political scene is lowering, so more people are able to get involved in the political process, and just the population is growing, right? That's just another aspect of it. But when the voter turnout jumps drastically from last time to this time, that's not because the populace became more educated or more informed or more aware or more caring. That's simply because they mailed a ballot to everyone's house, okay? And people who, I should clarify before I get taken down by YouTube. In some states, they've mailed a ballot to all of the registered voters' houses, and that's true. People who normally, and you also have these widespread social media campaigns and all these people saying, vote this, vote that. And you got all over social media. Remember that election help center on Instagram that wouldn't shut the hell up for like 3 whole months? So you got all these people that basically were pressed into voting that normally didn't care or didn't vote. Well, what happened? You had a bunch of people or I should say, what happens? I should avoid that election in general because it's not really allowed to be spoken about on YouTube. But in general, what happens Well, what happens is you have a bunch of uninformed, ignorant people making ignorant decisions ultimately for our government. And then we have stupid, bad, and dumb leaders as a result of those specific people voting. And this isn't rocket science here, folks. Okay, this isn't rocket science. And considering that's literally exactly what happens when you see such high voter turnout shoot up the way it did in this election, my question stands, why exactly should we be so celebratory and so like we believe it should be easy, super easy and very simple and same day registration for every citizen to vote? No, it shouldn't. No, it shouldn't. And by the way, if you're not willing to go through the process of getting an ID, if you're not willing to go through a process, in my opinion, this is what I believe the election law should be, of actually verifying citizenship, not just checking a box as it is in all but like 2 states in the country, not just checking a box that says, yes, I am a U.S. citizen, but actually bringing documents to prove that you are a U.S. citizen, like a social security card or something like that. If you're not willing to go through this process, I don't believe that you care enough. You know, if you really cared about the system, you really cared about voting and making a decision in our democracy, quote unquote, you really cared about this stuff, you would be willing to go through that process, but you're not. Why aren't you? You're not willing to go through that because you don't care enough. You don't care enough, and for that reason, you shouldn't be voting. Okay? And again, for the optics check, I'm not saying to take away your right to vote, but I'm saying you should stay home. You should stay home. Higher voter turnout's not really an amazing thing. And I'm not just saying that because it favors Republicans. I'm saying that specifically because when you really think about it logically and practically, it means dumber people voting. People who don't care about politics. And by the way, but when I say dumber, I'm not talking about like IQ or something like that. I'm talking in terms of political awareness and political informed levels of being politically informed, right? You have blue collar, non-college educated, people who make like 40 grand a year that have like an IQ of like 80 or whatever. You have people like that are actually fully invested and fully informed in politics. Meanwhile, you have 150 IQ, Silicon Valley elites, whatever, that make a bunch of money and they're not very politically informed. That's what I say when I mean dumb and smart. I'm talking politically dumb or politically smart. But really, that's all I got to say about it. And I think Republicans need to maybe it might be optical for all of the politicians to say, but conservatives in general need to reevaluate their relationship with so-called democracy. Guys, we love democracy so much, don't we? Yeah, no, we don't. No, we don't. Democracy is cringe. Anyways, guys, we've been streaming for about 2 hours here, folks. I'm gonna cut it off at the 2-hour mark. So let's see. Derek Chauvin trial. We probably don't have time for that. We'll talk about that a little bit later at a later point. Probably talk about it when the trial is basically close to wrapping up. What I will say is that, what I will say about it now, I think the evidence is really mounting and is really becoming clear that George Floyd was actually died by the lethal amounts of fentanyl and of methamphetamine he had in his system. And by the way, one common basically symptom of fentanyl overdose is that your airways close up. Okay. And if you watch the full body cam video, he actually says out loud verbally that he was having trouble breathing before the Chauvin ever had the knee on his neck. By the way, it wasn't even on his neck for the whole time. For a lot of time, his knee was actually on his back, right? But some angles, his neck, he probably had a neck for some of it and then took it off, whatever. And again, the argument in this court case is not whether or not Derek Chauvin used correct police procedure. Okay, so he might still face civil lawsuits, whatever. I don't know, or disciplinary things with the department, or even like a smaller harassment or malpractice charge or whatever. But that's not what's being charged here, is it? We're talking right now. Did Derek Chauvin kill George Floyd? That's what this court case is about. And the evidence really points in the other direction. No, Derek Chauvin did not kill George Floyd. George Floyd died from asphyxiation due to a drug overdose. By the way, that's what the first autopsy showed. The actual first official autopsy. And then the family requested a private autopsy a few days later amidst a bunch of rioting over the issue. And that was when you had people basically come out and you had that autopsy basically say, no, he was suffocated by the knee. But come on, folks. Come on, folks. You know, I think the initial autopsy got it right. Especially, you know, you look, the guy had lethal amounts of fentanyl in his system. Fentanyl is not a joke. Okay, fentanyl don't mess around. You die of fentanyl. You know, it's like the most potent, basically, drug on planet Earth. He's taking it here. You know, I think the case is basically clear that that's what killed him. And, you know, and no one really cares about that. America's still going to riot. You guys already know what's going to happen. I mean, we'll see what actually happens as a result of the case. Really, I haven't watched it. I really just don't care for it, you know, but I've heard from the highlights of the court case, basically, that the prosecution is kind of collapsing a little bit. They're kind of like, you know, running backwards. I think it's basically a guarantee that the second-degree murder charge is thrown out. We'll see about the third-degree murder charge. I mean, we'll really see what happens. You know, there's also a lot of political pressure, a lot of bias on this jury that could also have pretty big impact on it. So don't get me wrong there. You know, it's still very possible that Chauvin does get put in jail. You know, but I think in my opinion, the evidence really does not point toward Derek Chauvin killing George Floyd. Okay, again. You want to talk about police procedure, whatever, but that's not murder charges. You can't charge a guy with murder. It doesn't matter, you know, what he did that was like wrong or against police procedure or whatever. You know, if he did not murder George Floyd, then he did not murder or kill whatever. He did not kill George Floyd. He did not kill George Floyd. It's that simple. You know, so we'll see what happens. I think America's ready to riot. I honestly think you'll probably even see riots if the second-degree murder charge is not, is not convicted of, which, by the way, that's not going to happen. So we might see riots anyway, even if he does get convicted of third degree. But overall, I don't think he's guilty of any form of murder. And if you want to charge him with other things, whatever, we'd have to look at that case, right? We have to hear the facts of that case. But murder, not really. So, all right, let's see. We got 9 minutes left. Red and Blue Debates has said several times in this chat that he wants me to talk about the Roku show. So let's talk about the Roku show. Okay, so I don't know what I'm really. I mean, I never signed like an NDA or anything. I don't know what I'm really supposed to tell you guys right now. But who cares? We only got like 26 people watching. So basically, I am going to be having my own show, most likely. I mean, it's not like a confirmed thing, but it's like most likely, yeah. That's like what's happening. I'm going to be having my own show on a Roku channel pretty soon. And the Roku channel itself hasn't launched yet. They're basically like an entrepreneurial sort of thing. But they reached out to me. They were like, you want to have a show? I was like, that's great. Sure, I'll do it. Now, the thing is, you guys know that I make a lot of content already throughout the week. You know, aside from YouTube content, Instagram content, all that stuff. So I have 2 podcasts every week, Monday and Thursday. And then I live stream, as you guys know, every day on Wednesday. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do a TV show once a week and maybe expand it to twice a week, I probably got to cut something out of my current lineup, because this current lineup is pretty time consuming too. And I'm starting my own organization that's going to launch probably next month called American Populist Union, you know, not on the agenda. So I was like, oh shoot. All right, I got to figure this out. So I was like, you know what? The live streams don't really get a lot of views, if I were to be completely honest anyway. We'll probably stop doing the live streams on YouTube every week, and that's probably what we'll cut out of the lineup. And by the way, this is a BB gun, okay? This is a BB gun I'm playing around with, so please don't think I'm messing around with like a real firearm right now, okay? It's a BB gun. By the way, this thing's pretty fun. I was shooting in the backyard today. It was quite something, okay? I was, you know, I saw hentai. And I was like, you know, this cannot be. No hentai in the United States. Click. None of that. We're not going to have any of that here. But DK Menace says, all the low budget wrestling. I know what you're talking about. Like, I don't know what wrestling do they. Okay, I haven't watched wrestling in like 4 years, but back then they used to have like a Ring of Honor. That was like one of them. They had what was Impact Wrestling, right? They had stuff like that. I think now, what do they have? AEW, like American Elite Wrestling or something. That's what I heard they have now. But yeah, we're launching like this political channel. I'm not, but you know, I'm working for them. This political channel on Roku, and basically what I think I'm going to do with it is, the content's not going to be exclusive to Roku necessarily. Obviously, the full show is going to go on Roku first, but then I think like throughout the week, I'll probably I'll post. I mean, we have to talk to them about the channel, about the licensing, but I'll definitely post like clips from the show. Like, obviously it's gonna be a little bit more organized. It'll kind of be in segments. So I'll post the segments of the show throughout the week on this YouTube channel. I'll probably incentivize you guys to go watch it on Roku by saying, hey, you want to see it first? Go watch it on Roku. But then throughout the week, I'll post miniature clips of it on YouTube. And then, or maybe what I'll also do is also just post the full show as like a premiere. So it kind of does have the illusion of being live, but like as a premiere or something every week or every Friday or something on YouTube. And then, I'll also say, hey, you want to see these shows first, or you want to see the extended version of these shows? You got to go watch it on Roku, but you can watch the partial version, or you can watch the delayed version here on YouTube. And that's probably how we'll do it. Okay. So, yeah, that's the Roku show. It's going to be like a 30-minute news show every week, if that makes sense. So we're going to talk about the news, segments. Same way I kind of do the podcast. It's kind of this. I mean, this show is a little bit less organized, but the same kind of format. That's how we'll do it. So yeah. Anyways, the last thing I promised in this was to talk about this BB gun. Okay, so I bought this off Amazon. And someone's gonna say, Vince, why don't you get a real handgun? Because I can't. I live in California. I'm turning 18 in a few weeks, but you literally can't even private transfer to minors with handguns, so you just can't. But I want to practice. The reason I bought this, by the way, okay. Now this is not like really a toy BB gun. Okay, this actually shoots metal BBs, so it's kind of more of a pellet gun. This is the air cartridge right here. The reason I bought this is because I have been working on pistols. Right, I shoot my dad's pistol a lot, but I have this problem where. I'm trying to see if I can show you. And I basically mastered it by now, but I want to like really have that muscle memory in. A lot of rookie pistol shooters, and me included, have this problem where when you shoot the pistol, you basically dip the gun down, right? So like when it's kind of just a subconscious thing, like the trigger pull, you kind of like jerk the gun down and your aim is low. I was having that problem for a long time. I've now kind of got past it. I'm kind of like accurate now with pistols, but I wanted to practice more, right? So a good way to do it also is a gun with very little recoil. This gun has a little bit of recoil actually, which I kind of like about that, but it kind of, because it simulates a real gun a little bit. I mean, not nearly as much recoil, but I bought this because it's like I can basically, I don't go to the range every day and stuff. I can kind of practice that sort of pistol form, work on that dip and stuff by shooting, this thing, which is, it's a little bit smaller than your average handgun, but it is almost basically realistically sized and pretty realistically weighted. It's pretty heavy. I can basically accurately practice, stabilizing the gun, making sure it doesn't dip when I pull the trigger. And another pretty cool part about this, I was shooting in the backyard today with the BBs, but the thing is, obviously you can see there's nothing in it right now. The other cool thing about this is that you can dry fire it, right? But the dry fire doesn't just click. Let me show you. It doesn't just click. It actually because it's an air gun, right? So if the air still pops off and it still gives you a little bit of a jump, which is kind of fun to play around with, right? So you can kind of practice dry firing within the house like this, so you like I don't know if you can hear that, but see, the air does kind of go off a little bit. And if you don't totally stabilize it, it'll blow back on you a little bit. So it's pretty good. It's from Sig Sauer. I forgot what it's called. I think it's called P365. Okay. It's called the P365 metal BB gun from Sig Sauer. Someone wanted me to show that on live stream. Okay. So here it is. Now, if I get taken down from YouTube because of this, screw you. Okay, but yeah, that's my BB gun. I've been having a lot of fun in this. I basically built like an airsoft range in the backyard. Water bottles, paper targets, stuff like that. Like a little mini shooting range, right? Mini shooting range. And the nice thing is, like, this is not like a cheap BB gun, right? This is like $130. So it actually shoots with like realistic trajectory and velocity and stuff like that. So it's not like the gun it's not like a Nerf gun where it just kind of like falls out and falls whatever, right? It's realistic. And I know I broke like 2 firearm safety rules in the process of showing you this, but okay, chill out. It's a BB gun. It's on empty. Okay. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Okay. I know. Okay. But you guys wanted to see it. Okay. So I have to show it to you again. There's nothing in the magazine. Okay. Don't worry. And it's not like I'm pointing it at myself, but you guys know like what rules I'm technically breaking with this, but okay. But it's a lot of fun. And around the house, if I see it, or we're just walking around in general, I see any hentai out there, I say, no hentai. Get out of the United States of America. Pop. And it's very fun. So, yeah. I'll be wrapping up the stream pretty soon. But Robert Frank Brass says, what part of Cali? Anish, my boy, says, my only libertarian friend, by the way, says, can I hop on the stream? You know what? Sure. Why not? I'm just gonna put the link in the chat and hope that no one else shows up. Although if that happens, that'll happen. But here, we'll talk for like 10 minutes and then I gotta go. But here, Anish, you can copy paste that and then you can get in the stream that way. But yeah, folks, California compliant. By the way, I'm very surprised the state of California hasn't banned this. But it isn't. They technically have not yet. And so this is California compliant. I don't know if you can conceal carry this. I tried to search it up. You can't really get it. I can't really get a straight answer on this. Might not be the smartest thing to conceal carry because it's only the BBs for this only travel at like 265 feet per second. Barely can't even pierce a water bottle. So it doesn't pierce human skin really. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can still ultimately really hurt someone with this, but probably not the best concealed carry weapon. Okay, but I believe you technically can conceal carry this in California, but don't take my word for that. I don't know the law, and just to be clear, I've not done that. I don't conceal carry this, but I don't know how the laws actually work on that thing. So yeah, but yeah, it's my BB gun. You can go hentai hunting with this. You can say no anime. Okay, there's too guys. I mean, there's too much anime out there, so you can just hentai. Thou shalt not watch hentai. No, get out of here. All right. Anyways, I don't know. I'm just being an idiot. I know, but yeah. All right. We'll let Anish hop in here for like 10 minutes and then we'll call it a night, guys. But let's see what else we got going on in the chat, folks. Can you debate people on Omegle? I did this once. True story. I did this once. And the results were honestly just so stupid that I just didn't do it again. But I guess we should do it again. The real way you got to do it is you got to wear a MAGA hat. You know what I mean? You got to wear a MAGA hat and then just go debate people. But the problem is, now after the election, basically all they kind of seem to say now on Omegle is like, Trump lost, and then just skip you. And it's like, all right, well, how do you actually debate people on Omegle when they're just doing this pure clownery? I mean, come on now. So it's a bit unfortunate. It's a bit unfortunate if I do say so myself. But let's see. Anish, hurry up and get in here, dude. I don't have all night for you to freaking do your hair. Like, just get in the freaking live stream. See what else we got going on here. Why is Hunter Biden not in jail? Because he's a Biden, and Biden is allowed to do whatever he wants. And I could say more, but that's really the reason, and we just all know that's the reason. Hold on, one last question before we add Anish to the stream, and this is something that's been talked about a lot on Twitter, so I will address it. Do you want Trump or DeSantis in 2024? And who do you want to be the vice president? Okay, so I don't have really an opinion on this. To me, it's honestly a false choice because we all know that, and I know this is like a cop-out answer, but I'm being serious. Like I'm not trying to conceal one answer or the other because I think it's going to be inconvenient. I'm kind of in the middle on this. I think they're both great candidates. They're both almost on like equal levels. I mean, I think Trump has some strengths. DeSantis has some strengths. Overall, they're both solid candidates. I think it's a false choice because if Trump decides that he wants to run for president, DeSantis is not going to run for president. We know that. They're not going to run against each other. And so that's why I say it's like, who cares really? So I guess the real question is, will Trump, and by the way, if Trump runs in 2024, I'll support him, obviously.
Now the question is, will or should, I guess, Trump run in 2024? And I think it's too soon to really give you a definitive answer on that. I think, and let me explain what I mean by that. I think it's all dependent on the Republican Party's results in 2022. Okay. And that's what Trump himself said. He's basically judging himself off of. That's what we're judging it off of. It's a pretty good metric, right? Because he's out here saying, I'm going to help the Republican Party win the midterms. And I think if the Republican Party does really well in the midterms as a result of his coattails, then it's like, okay, clearly there's a strong chance and he should run for president. Now, if the Republican Party doesn't do well in the midterms, there is sort of nuance to this, because I will say that I think the biggest thing that will hold the Republicans back in the midterms is not Trump. It's actually that the fact that Trump is endorsing a lot of weak candidates, a lot of rhino candidates. Mike Crapo is one example, but there are many different examples of him just making very bad endorsements that are basically just spoon-fed from Lindsey Graham or Jared Kushner or whoever. And so I think that's actually going to hold Trump back. And I think if he wants to really be serious about winning 2022 so that he can run in 2024 and have a feasible shot, I think if he wants to do that, then he has to stop endorsing these crappy, weak neoconservative candidates that really don't believe in his agenda. I mean, I don't even if you want to say he's thinking, oh, they're practical, they're pragmatic, but I really would make the case that they're not practical. They're not actually practical candidates to run. You saw this in Wisconsin last night. Neoconservative establishment Republican runs in a state that Republicans are supposed to win. I know it was like a state superintendent election, but still, and they lose. Okay. And they lose. And the spoon-fed GOP establishment candidates lose. Okay. So in terms of if he wants to win, I think he has to get serious about who he's endorsing. Okay. With that being said, I think if he does very well in 2022, if the Republicans do very well in 2022, and it's clear Trump is the reason why, then that's when we say Trump should run in 2024, right? Regardless, I'd support him if he ran in 2024. I think he has one last art of the comeback to make. You guys know his life arc, basically. In the business world, he was on top, lost everything for a while. I don't know if you guys have seen that very famous clip from him. Lost everything for a while, and then was down in the dumps, and then came back, and he finished the art of the comeback to become king of the business world once again. And I think, his life is sort of has a need to repeat itself. And so I'll support that. I think he has a revenge tour to make. And so I'm not one of these people that's totally just throwing Trump in the trash. You have a lot of sort of people I see actually like saying, no Trump, only we want DeSantis. And don't get me wrong, DeSantis, you guys know I'm not anti-DeSantis. I love DeSantis. All I'm saying is that I'm not one to just totally rule out Trump at this point, and like I said, I think both candidates have their strengths, and it's going to be one or the other. I'll support both basically on equal levels, but I know it's a huge cop-out answer, but it's honestly true because I can't give you a straight answer on this. I guess in my heart, I kind of would emotionally want Trump a little bit more. I also think DeSantis is a little bit more electable. But again, they're both solid candidates that I think I would support and I'd be just fine with. So there you go. There's your answer for it. So anyways, Anish is in the stream. What's up, my guy? How you doing? This is my libertarian friend, for those of you guys who don't know. You guys might have seen him on election night, or my OG fans may know that I used to make YouTube videos with him. But he is back. He's back, folks, making content. So be sure to follow him on Instagram at Anish Liberty. Let me actually turn on the name tag so they know how to spell it. But how are you doing, my man? What's up?
I'm doing good, man. I literally just got up, went for a run, saw you were on stream, so then I
actually wait, hold on. Don't stop talking. Wait, hold on. I can't hear you because my AirPods are technically on, and I'm pretty sure that's the reason why. At least that's probably the reason I can't hear. Actually, no, wait. Is my sound just down? Okay. Oh yeah. Okay, now I can hear you. Okay, you're good.
Okay, I mean my gain was a bit lower, so is this better?
I don't know. It seems fine to me.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I was saying I was just I just woke up. I had gone for a run. I saw you on stream. I ran back, took a quick shower, and hopped on.
All right, how you doing, my man? I don't even know what we're doing here, but what's up?
I mean, I got my first blow up on TikTok.
Very nice. Very nice.
A lot of triggered leftists in the comments.
Many such cases. Exactly. So yeah, let me see. Let's see what we got going on in the chat. I guess we can just both mutually answer questions or something.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Andrew, the textbook makes a very good point. He says, I think Trump needs to fix his health. He needs to stop eating McDonald's and get off that statin. I don't know what that is, but I'd still support him, but I want to make sure he doesn't die of a heart attack in the second term. This is a good point. You got to give him a physiognomy check, right? But the thing is, you actually look at Trump in the last few months, he is losing weight. You look at him, he's lost actually a lot of weight ever since he's left office. I mean, the guy's a skinny, fit Chad basically now. I think it's just mainly because he's golfing so much and working out and not so much stress, But I think this is something he's considering, and this is something I really see him doing. So I think he will pass the physiognomy check by 2024.
Yeah, I mean, not that there's much else to be said about that. About Trump running generally in 2024, what would you say the chances are on that at the moment? Like, if you had to put a percentage on it.
Of him running, I'd say 60% he does, 40% he doesn't. So it's about even, but I'd give it a slight advantage to him deciding he wants to run again, because he has been kind of hinting at it. So we'll see.
We will see indeed. It's going to be very tough without a social media presence, though.
Yeah, it will be, and we'll have to see like what they end up deciding to do. Because of that, I guess the advantage to Trump is that everyone kind of knows who he is already, so it's not going to be that hard. But it is something that's going to definitely. It's very hard to run a presidential campaign without social media in the 21st century. That's definitely true.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
When are the midterms? That's in November 2022. Come on, man. You should come on. What's up with you? Historical. You're called historical stress. Don't you know the civics aspect of it? They're every 2 years, my guy. I mean, come on now. Let's see. Worst conservative commentator, David Chapman. Okay, I don't know if you guys even know who he is, but he's just this clown on Twitter. He works for Rasmussen. He just had some really like brain dead takes. Basically. Guys, just go on his Twitter, okay? Like, I think he's called me out on Twitter a few times, Red Eagle a few times. He just has very brain dead takes. Like, let me think. What are some stupid things he said? So he said a lot of basically brain dead things about Ron DeSantis, basically attacking Ron DeSantis for like literally like the stupidest reasons ever, and saying that Ron DeSantis would never be a viable candidate for president, which I think is an extremely brain dead thing to say. He's also said some other interesting things like that Teddy Roosevelt was not a populist, that he's saying that he would have stood with the South in the Civil War. I mean, the guy is just the guy's all kind of just off the deep end. I mean, David Chapman, guys, works for Rasmussen, really low IQ individual. Okay. He's more of Red Eagle politics' enemy than mine, but I still also firmly believe he's a very low IQ individual indeed. So
I searched David Chapman up on Google and I got John Lennon's murderer.
Hey, same name. And I mean, you look at the guy. I mean, give the guy a physiognomy check too. I mean, the guy doesn't really pass the physiognomy check either. But they should have made Trump TV. Well, they're making Trump social media pretty soon, so that's gonna be quite the sight.
What if the big tech companies like Google and shit and the App Store and all of that start blocking Trump's shit as well? They probably will, to be honest.
Well, I think that Trump has enough widespread appeal. See, the problem with something like Gab and Parler to an extent is that, people don't really just want to go through the browser to access those sites because it's just kind of annoying. But I think something like a Trump social media site, the appeal of that would be so great that people would actually use the browser to kind of access it. So I think that's the advantage. They'll have to obviously keep that in mind and use that to make a very mobile browser friendly site. It's going to be very important because most of these social media sites are very like annoying to use on mobile browser. Exactly. But that's what they'll have to do for sure. All right. Joel says, do you think Murkowski will be successfully primaried? Alaska is a very weird state, but I really don't see how she's going to survive not being primaried at this point. I mean, she's made some very poor decisions, voted to impeach Trump, voted against Joe Manchin to not take action on transgenders in female sports, and really just a lot of other brain dead policy. And it's not like she's from a swing state. I mean, she's from Alaska. This is a deep red state, at least R plus 10 we're talking about. There's really no excuse.
You know, in 2010, a Republican actually primaried her out successfully, and then she came back and won the general election because the Democrats in the state basically made a coalition and teamed up to actually vote in Murkowski back in office. So that's actually more of my concern. I think she will be successfully primaried, but we'll have to see because Alaska has sort of these open elections. We'll have to see. Hopefully she doesn't come back and then win the general, even though winning despite losing the primary. That is a possibility. It happened about 10 years ago, so. I don't know if you have anything to say about American candidates.
I honestly don't know that much about like the state ones. Like some of them, yes, but Alaska, nah, I have no idea. Buy his way into Fox to advertise and stuff for his main base for his social media. Maybe. I don't know. How is Fox doing lately? I know they like had like a huge turn like after the election and during the election, but have they sort of pushed their more populist anchors more since then, or?
They're just back to be, these kind of boy. I mean, I'm not saying I endorse that, but these kind of boycotts don't necessarily last.
Yeah,
they've come back to now being the number one rated network on TV. To be honest, it's mainly because of Tucker Carlson. Okay, if we were to be completely honest, that man is single-handedly carrying the entire network on his back because really the rest of the coverage out of Fox is honestly quite garbage. And so there's a reason why they're expanding him. They're giving him a podcast on Fox Nation and everything. That's really the reason why. And he's honestly the only person that I would kind of watch on Fox at all. I think the rest of them are quite annoying and quite garbage. So
yeah, I agree.
All right. Anyways, how have you been doing, sir? What's up with you?
How
What's
have
on
I
your
been doing?
mind? What is on your mind politically?
Politically, I don't know. This voter ID bullshit is just really stupid to me. I just don't get it, especially coming from a country like we're okay. Like people will say we're a third world country. We're not a third world country, but we are a developing country.
He lives in India, by the way.
You know, yeah. If anything, we're a second world country, if that's a thing. But we have a much more robust like ID requirement and voting system than a lot of states in the US, which really surprises me. I mean, like people talk about how ID is not accessible. You know, like why not focus on that? Why not make ID more accessible? People need ID for pretty much everything. So why don't you just make it easier for them to get ID? And, you know, you'll fix the voter ID problem. And you'll also fix other problems, because are you saying that the people in the minority communities who don't have ID don't deserve to drive, don't deserve to do all of these other things that you need ID for?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, it's a win-win situation if you're trying to make ID more accessible, which will naturally happen if you have voter ID laws. So I just don't get the opposition against it.
No, there is none. I mean, the reason why is because they want to do a certain C word that we're not allowed to say on YouTube. I mean, that's really the only excuse you have for it. There's no really other rational excuse. I mean, minorities have IDs. Nor is it really hard to get an ID in the United States. It takes about 2 weeks. And we're talking about something, you know, the elections in Georgia are not for another basically year and a half, you know. It's really not that hard. I got an ID a few weeks ago. Took about 2 weeks. Wasn't
IDs
a big deal.
in Georgia are free. Is that true?
Yeah, every state, because you have to. Every state where they have voter ID, it's free to get the ID. Obviously, because that I guess that, you know, that's fair. So
Yeah.
There's really no excuse other than, well, it kind of takes kind of long. First of all, it doesn't really take that long. But even then, if you're not willing to take a few hours and wait in the mail for a few weeks to get an ID, then I'm sorry, you shouldn't be voting anyway. Because if you don't care enough about our political process to be involved, be willing to do a simple process like that, I don't want you making our political decisions anyway. Because clearly you're not vested enough in it. Clearly you don't care enough about it to actually, in my estimation, make a good decision out of like actual care and actual, you know, in good intent.
Yeah, exactly. So I posted a video on TikTok about this voter ID thing. I tried one of those shorter videos because you know how I am. I don't like making like super provocative videos that don't leave that much of an explanation. But you know, that's what does well on TikTok, right? I always want to explain my ideas fully and do some kind of intellectual analysis or whatever. But that just doesn't work on TikTok. So I posted a 15-second TikTok about this, and so like it got a lot of views, like more than any of my other TikToks. It's 6K views overnight for me, that is, and 500 likes. But bruh, the people in the comments are triggered as shit. It's crazy. Like people are talking because I compared it to Canada, right? I compared voter ID laws to Canada, since Canada has basic voter ID requirement nationally. So I'm like, if Canada is so woke, right? You keep talking about how we should be more like Canada. When I say we, the US, of course. Then I mean, they require voter ID. Isn't voter ID also woke then? So I just made a short video about that, pointing at the number of countries, not only Canada. Like it's a lot of countries, in Europe, a lot of countries in Europe, a lot of countries across the world, even third world countries, but not USA. So
India requires voter ID, don't they?
Yeah, they require voter ID. So like it's quite strict. I mean, there's something we have called an Aadhaar card, and for that you need documents. So to get an Aadhaar card, you either need like a driver's license, a school ID, or something like that, or alternatively, you need to fill in a form document, go to your local government office, get them to sign it, then submit that to the central government and have them respond to you. And that's when you finally get your ID. So it's pretty. It's not that it's like super easy. And we're talking about India, right? You're talking about minority communities in the US and how they're poor and whatnot. They're nothing compared to poor communities in India. Okay, you guys are living like millionaires compared to poor communities in India. So if poor communities in India can get access to ID with such a robust process, then why wouldn't poor communities in the US be able to do the same?
So true. Great point. Many such cases. I know. It's very stupid. The unholy alliance 20. Oh my god. Okay. If we do that, we might as well just launch the nukes, okay? Because the country's over, the world's over. If Chapman and Cotto ran to
who's Cotto?
Just another brain dead sort of Twitter user, very, very similarly cold takes. Again, more of Red Eagle's enemy than my enemy, but I was on that stream once. They kind of filled me in of all the enemies, and then I saw them on Twitter and was like, okay. Kato is a prince of Rwanda, apparently. Not a true story. Actually, I don't know if it's a true story. I believe it's an alleged story. Yeah, he spent a bunch of money to buy like this crown from Rwanda. It's just a very weird story. Very, very weird guy. Very odd guy with some very
Is he American?
Yes. I don't know. It's just, people call him Rwandan Prince as like a joke or something. Chad Prather for governor of Texas. I don't even know. I know he's just a host on Blaze. I mean, I don't know. He'd probably be a good governor. I don't think he'll win the primary, but he'd be a good governor, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I don't know much about what he believes, to be honest. But
how's Abbott?
Abbott is he's okay. I mean, he's. I'm really not a huge fan of him. I don't know. I wouldn't also say he's necessarily the biggest primary target for me right now, but I wouldn't mind seeing a primary challenger for him. I'll say that, but I don't think it's not like my biggest priority. Like I said in the beginning of the stream, it's like he's not the worst Republican governor in America, definitely, but he's not really that great either. And the problem is that the other Republican states follow him in terms of policy. So, he basically sets the tone, and not someone like Ron DeSantis. So that's basically the biggest problem I have with him, is he's a bad influence on the rest of the country. Do we have any chance at primarying out McConnell? No. The reason why McConnell was up for re-election this past cycle, he was actually trailing behind his primary challenger. And then for some reason, okay, this is why I say don't trust Trump endorsements, okay? Do not trust his endorsements. You got to research your stuff for yourself. Trump, guess what he did? He endorsed McConnell. Okay, he endorses McConnell. Saves McConnell in that election. Now, guess what? McConnell's not up to re-election until 2026. So, I mean, we'll maybe down the line, if people really remember, I doubt they'll even remember by then, and that's the problem. 2020 was a chance to get him out, and Trump decided he wanted to endorse him. So, anyways. Lalo's another character. I've not had any interactions with Lalo personally, but I know he's another character that is kind of you have kind of like the four horsemen of the apocalypse of the Red Eagles channel, right? I guess who would be the fourth would be I guess Let's Talk Elections. So it's like let's talk elections, Lalo, Kato, and who's the other guy? Chapman. That's basically the four horsemen of the apocalypse of the Red Eagle community.
How's Red Eagle doing now that the election stuff has all died down?
We're all getting shadow banned. He's actually doing pretty well, it looks like, but we're all like they're basically shadow banning all the conservative YouTubers. And I did expect some, drop off of views, right? Because it's just what you would expect. Interest is dead, Biden is boring. But I'll see on some videos where it's like, I know this is supposed to be getting a lot of views, you know what I mean? And it just won't. And I'm just like, the channels like, I guess, Fox News, their YouTube channel, what YouTube is doing is just trying to promote corporate media. That's what they're trying to do and crush small time media, because you have a channel like Fox News, very positive impression rating, very good analytics. And then small conservative YouTube channels that don't have that backing have terrible impression advantages. And basically they're getting terrible engagement. And clearly there's something going on there, because if the interest is just dead with politics, Fox News would be taking the same hit, but they're not. It's only us. So very sad, very cringe. But hopefully this Roku show that I'm getting soon does not have the same effects, but we'll see what happens with that.
You're getting a Roku show?
Yeah, I'm getting a Roku show.
Oh wow.
All right.
How did that happen?
Just someone. This people. I don't know if I'm like ready to like disclose that or able to disclose that yet. Or I don't even know if I'm able to say like who's running the channel or dox them or whatever. But I will say that like people I know, I knew basically someone they knew was watching my YouTube channel. They like my podcast and they're starting this Roku channel soon. And they're like, hey, you wanna maybe host your podcast? And I was just like, no, I'll just make my own show on there because I kind of have the time. So that's how I'm getting a Roku channel soon. And it's gonna be like a kind of like a news podcast sort of thing, 30 minutes, talk about the news, a little bit less structured than like a TV show, like a full TV news show, but kind of have that internet feel, but a little bit of organization to it.
Will it be live?
No, not yet. At some point probably, but not yet. It's just going to be like pre-recorded. Yes, very true. Conservative channels are indeed actually being killed. Opinion on it. Everyone's just asking about candidates right now. You picked the wrong time as a foreigner to actually come in this chat. Everyone wants to talk about elections right now. Opinion on Joe Gale. We love Joe Gale. Okay, we endorse Joe Gale on this channel. Will he win? Probably not. Okay, probably not, because unfortunately, his campaign is a freaking disaster. Okay, go on that guy's website. It looks like it was made of HTML 2008. Like, you just can't win a political campaign like that. But my heart is with Joe Gale. Okay, so we endorse Joe Gale. All right. So I'm definitely a big fan. Definitely the best candidate of them. His campaign just not run well. Okay, and that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate because I would like to see him win. But yeah, let's see. We'll cut this off in like 3 minutes. Anything else you wanted to bring to the light or like shout yourself out or something?
Nothing I can think of. What's going on apart from the voter ID BS in the US anyway?
Someone has a question for you. They said opinion on your prime minister,
Modi.
right?
Okay. You're not going to try to pronounce it, are you?
No.
Okay. Well, as Vince mentioned, I'm a libertarian, and Modi is not exactly a libertarian. I mean, he's far from it. He's quite an authoritarian. Now, he's done some good things with the economy. He's had a lot of initiatives to bring manufacturing back to India. I mean, there are a lot of similarities between him and Trump in terms of policy. I think he probably gets more shit than he deserves, but at the same time, I'm not the biggest fan because, like I said, I'm not really into governing with an iron fist. But some of the changes he's made, I can stand by. I mean, to say more than that, I'd have to give a lot of context about Indian politics, which we don't have the time to get into. So
let's see. Oh, here's a good question. All right, this is my last question tonight. Sav's Master, that's not a very serious question, sir. But okay, Q-Tip says, are you thinking on voting for Williams or Faulkner for this California recall? I don't know. Yeah, I like I said, I think Faulkner is the only candidate who has any viable chance of being competitive here. At the same time, it is a recall, so it's kind of just vote for whoever the hell, right? But I think my kind of goal with this is to kind of try to build a coalition around Faulkner. Major Williams is a great guy, great candidate, but he's too conservative. He's too conservative for the state of California. He's not going to win here. He would never win here. I don't want to hear any on the boomers try to come and say, but he's black. Yeah, that doesn't make a difference. He's not going to win in the state of California, okay? It doesn't matter. So, like I said, I would prefer to vote for Faulkner and try to get Faulkner elected out of just pragmatism, right? But we'll see what happens because the recall is kind of a mess. So, we'll see what actually happens with that. So I might just say, you know what, I'll vote for Major because this recall is kind of pointless anyway, and it's just a jungle primary. But practically speaking, I think Faulkner is way more viable to get into office. So, there we go.
Start reading up about this.
Yeah, you should. But anyways, guys, that's gonna wrap up the stream tonight. Be sure to follow my one libertarian friend on earth, at Anisha Liberty on Instagram and TikTok. Okay, let's keep the debates respectful, folks. Okay, I had one follower who I do to I do not have ill feelings toward, but it's called a little bit of commenting. You did a little bit of commenting, okay? So let's keep it respectful. I know most of us are not. Most of us are more authoritarian leaning. But yeah, see you guys later. Again, I'll see you guys with the podcast tomorrow. I don't know what the future of these live streams are going to be. Like I said, I might try to just transition this into the Roku channel. We might do like sporadic live streams here and then, but I'm not sure. Like, I'll let you guys know what I decide to do with these weekly streams. But again, all right. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good night. Alpha Moves Only. And make sure you follow him, okay? At Anisha Liberty. All right. See you guys.